Well, hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on our stream here on YouTube on this Thursday, September 20th. We're so happy to be here with you and that you are here with us. And you're probably seeing our headline right now and wondering what this is all about. And we are live in the newsroom here with Dr. Nicole Alford. So happy to have her here as a guest. And I want to introduce her as part of our series that we're promoting here at Fox 5. And you may have seen this if you caught our air program this morning on with Allison Seymour. But it's a series called Tired as a Mother. And we're talking to many professionals, including Nicole herself, who's a doctor, about her life and balance and really just health, happiness, and hacks in life to balance it all. And so we're here for you guys sort of as more of a community effort segment to kind of talk about this. And Nicole, come on in a little closer here.
Sure.
We'll get to know our viewers here. So there's her information at the bottom of your screen, and Nicole has an interesting story, and we want to kind of continue on from what was said this morning. So Nicole, tell us sort of how you came to kind of be part of this segment and what it's all about.
Sure. So as a clinical psychologist, just in the in the DMV area, a lot of what I'm seeing in my practice now are just women who are tired, who are overwhelmed, who are moms, mompreneurs, entrepreneurs, busy career women, of course, parents raising children, wives, partners, but also just that many people are sandwiched and feeling like they're taking care of children, raising children, and also having to take care of their parents. And so just the overwhelm, trying to find balance. Where's the time for me?
Yeah. And so you have such an interesting background. I was reading a little bit about your specialty, really, and about your professionalism, and it goes back, you even did some special governmental work, right?
I did.
And you've done some real kind of top secret stuff.
I did.
And it's amazing.
That is true. That is true.
So what led you now to kind of be talking more about this and getting on the level with some of you out there who may be caretakers or moms or parental caretakers? What sort of changed your path?
Yeah, so I think like for most women, you wake up one day and you realize that, I'm a little crispy, I'm a little burnt out, right? I can kind of do things differently. And so you're right, I was in the intelligence community for many years. My last tour with the agency that I was with was actually in the war zones, and so when I came back, I was super burnt out and super crispy. So just that realization for me was an epiphany that I needed to do something different. Yeah.
What's some of the stuff I know, and we're kind of going on from the morning show, but it was some of the tips you want to give out there for people who are just normal people watching at home who have a ton to do. Maybe they have kids, they're taking care of their ailing parents, perhaps. You're caught in between. What are some of the first and foremost steps that we can take?
So I think the first thing that you really have to do is admit to yourself and acknowledge for yourself, I'm overwhelmed. I need help. Because I think once you realize that, then you can ask for help and you won't guilt yourself out of, you know what I mean? I think the guilt sometimes is an impediment. It keeps us stuck. And we feel like, I should be able to do this and I should be able to rip and run and take the kids here and take the dog to get groomed and do this and do that. And so I think just acknowledging where you are is half the battle won.
Saying, hey, I have all these duties and I know I have that.
It's too much. It's too much for me. I need help. Yeah.
Then what? Compartmentalizing, picking, what is it? Sticking with a goal?
Then I think once you realize that you're overwhelmed, then you can take some practical steps to do stuff. So for example, one tip that I give to patients, and they found it really quite helpful, is chunking your time, chunking your schedule. So for example, what that would look like is, let's say I have to take my aging mom to some medical appointments, and she's got lots of them because she's getting older, and this is just what happens to the human body. And so I would schedule as many appointments as I could within an allotted chunk of time, maybe 4 or 5 hours, a half a day, because I'm probably going to have to take that day off from work. I want to maximize my time. So I can take her to the doctor, I can maybe run her to the pharmacy, she can hit physical therapy for an hour, and then maybe we can grab a lunch or something like that. But chunking your time.
Put it together so that you check those things off and you check them off the box and you can move on to the next.
Exactly.
So interesting, yeah.
Exactly.
And what are some of the things sort of that you personally are dealing with that? I mean, are you also right now juggling all these different things as well? I know you take care of your parents as well.
Yeah, so my mom is...
on the exact location of this shooting incident.
Breaking news coming in.
It's actually Perryman, Maryland, which is near Aberdeen, Maryland. The town where this happened is Perryman, Maryland.
So yeah, my mother is a widow, and so she's we moved here from out of state, and so she's here, essentially by herself, with the exception of just having me here. So yeah, I have to run to the doctor's appointment. She doesn't drive, right? So it's me. So she's got errands, and she's got things she has to do, and so it all falls on me. So I have to chunk time. I have to be smart about it. You know, we have to sort of strategically plan where we're going to go, where we're going to hit first. We got to build in time for traffic and delays. I found that if you arrange this smartly, though, it really can be done. It really can be done.
This is really, I mean, this concept, it sounds so general, but it's truly a thing that plagues a lot of people. There's so much shit done. There are so many things and people that you want to care for. So a lot of it comes from compassion, right? Because you're there trying to be a person for another, whether it be a parent, a friend. And so where does all the other stuff comes in too? Like you said, pets, friends,
life,
to-dos,
life, just time for you, right? So another tip that I give my patients is, and I try to implement for myself, is just to be very almost selfish about carving out some time for you. You have to be selfish about it. Why? Because mom will call, or your dad will call, or somebody will need something, or the dog will have to go to the vet. But you have to be almost selfish about, okay, this Saturday, this one Saturday a month, or this these few hours a day, this is going to be just for me. And I'm not, you know, I'm going to silence the phone. I'm not going to answer any emails. I'm just going to do what it is that I want to do that will recharge me, refresh me, rejuvenate me, so I can keep my head in the game.
And I, for one, and I know some of you out there can resonate with that. I've even told my own mother, I've said, I have to carve out time on my weekend to say, yeah, I'm busy, I'm doing myself, or I'm doing something for me. It's funny how that is part of your schedule, and you really do need to carve it out. That's
you
so
have
interesting.
You got to be very intentional about doing that.
Yeah. What, any other things that you've come across kind of in your profession where you see women, especially because we're focusing on women, right? Juggling all these things. What other kind of things have you come across that have been tricky for women to figure out in this world? Juggling those things. Anything else that kind of sticks out? I know I had some of these on my list.
So for example, you know, one of the other tips, and this doesn't, you know, not necessarily with respect to elder care and parenting, but just juggling life, is to, you know, is to rely on your tribe, rely on your village, you know, in terms of taking care of an elder parent, or an aging parent, or a sickly parent, or a sick spouse. We can't be every place at the same time, right? And so we need help, and so rely on your village around you, your community of people, your, you know, siblings. My sibling doesn't live here in this state, and my brother lives actually in New York, and so when my dad was getting older and his health was failing, and he's passed away now, but my brother took care of him, and so my brother and I sort of had a dialogue, and we were like, you know what, you're here with mom, I'm here with dad, you have mom, I got dad. You don't have to worry about it. I don't want you to have to worry about traveling back and forth.
It's sort of like, it's having that relationship, but also setting those boundaries, like you're doing this, I'm doing this.
Exactly.
It's being decisive about it, right?
Exactly. And having those conversations.
It's hard. I know that decisiveness is tough, personally. It is hard.
And having the conversations, right? And not waiting until stuff goes awry, but having them kind of early along, right? So we all know people are living longer. We all know our parents are living longer. We all know probably they're not going to be here forever. Probably we will outlive them. So let's start having those intentional conversations with our siblings, with our other family members about, you know, so who's going to help to take care of mom, and you know, God forbid, if something happens with mom and she can't live alone, you know, what are we going to do? What's the plan? Let's have those conversations. And those are hard conversations to have.
You don't want to necessarily think about that future, that rough, hard,
difficult,
sad sort of things in our lives that ultimately, of course, happen. It is difficult, and I want to tell you guys, if you are just joining us, just reminding you that part of a series called Tired as a Mother, and we're focusing on influential women who are able to come into our studio, which is amazing, and be part of our morning show, talking about health, happiness, and hacks in life. And Dr. Nick, as she goes by, Nicole, is here. And quickly, a little bit for some people joining us about your background again, and sort of what you do exactly now, day to day, where you're at in your professional life?
Sure. So I'm a clinical psychologist. I've been practicing for 21 years now, which is huge. I began my career doing criminal and forensic psychology, and so working in prisons and forensic hospitals, and I worked for many years at the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, joined the intelligence community, and, you know, worked for a couple of the three-letter organizations that we know. And worked lots overseas, and did a lot of overseas travel, and so so I was telling you that my last tour was actually in the war zones, and and so now I came back. I was just a little crispy, and I really needed to do something different, and wanted to do something different, and felt it was time. And so I have a private practice now. In Bowie, Maryland, and you know, if anyone is interested, you can find me on www.thegooddrnick.com.
TheGoodDrNick.com.
Yes.
And I want to know, just personally, this is so fascinating to me. How did working in prisons and with inmates change you, and how did being overseas in that war zone change you? All these effects, I mean, I'm sure they are so influential in your life now.
Yeah. So I think, you know, working in prisons, of course, you learn to size up and read people and situations rather quickly. And so I think that's what it did for me, because safety, right? Safety is at bay. So if you don't do that, that could just be potentially a situation gone bad very quickly. I think working overseas certainly, you know, gives you an optic that you don't have, right? When you live and work overseas, and you get to be exposed to other cultures and other ways of doing things, and you get to speak to other people, and they give you their optic about their views on America and how great America is, and having that perception. And having been in the war zone, you know, it is sobering. It's sobering, you know. You are, of course, not alone. You know, you're there with people that you're serving with, but you are kind of alone. So it's a bit of an isolating experience. It's a very heavy experience. And,
right. Do you have a closeness to the, of course you do because you're former intelligence and government, but closeness to the military now, or veterans, anything that sort of connects you back?
So I just have an affinity for active duty soldiers and former soldiers, veteran, especially for people who have served in the war zone. And while I'm not a soldier, I kind of fancy myself. I did serve my country, right? And so the people that I served with are some of the best friends that I have in life. And so that's what it does for you.
Yes, your background is so fascinating, and we're so happy to have Dr. Nicole here in studio with us, and we're going to clip this and put it on our website and give this to you guys to watch. But remember, this series continues throughout the weeks, and it will be on our morning show. If you're local to the DMV area, of course, tune in to Channel 5, Fox 5 DC in the morning, and we'll have this segment ongoing in the 9 o'clock hour. But thank you so much for your time, Nicole. This was amazing, and your background is fascinating. And any parting words sort of for working mothers out there, and any kind of last tip?
Yeah, you know, just make sure that you're taking time out for you. You know, of course I understand it's hard. We all understand it's hard. It is a difficult thing to do. But again, you have to be a little selfish and a little intentional. If you find that it's just too much, it's just, you know, you feel yourself getting very overwhelmed, make sure that you reach out to someone. There are a number of support groups. There are free community support groups. NAMI.org, you can find a list of support groups. ARP.org has a list of support groups for elder care and for aging parents, and for those of us that are caretakers for that population. So, and if anyone just wants to find out a little bit more about me or my services, you can find me at www.thegooddrnick.com. And please do feel free to follow me on all social media platforms. I am at thegooddrnick.
Perfect, Nick. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As you can see, guys, we have the hustle and bustle of our newsroom right behind me with a varied amount of breaking news this morning, so we'll get to that in a minute. But we want to thank Nicole for her time, and we'll be back with more breaking news in a second. All right, everyone, we are back in our newsroom live. I'm joined by Holly Morris here. Thanks so much for coming over. As we are, of course, dealing with a breaking situation outside of Baltimore after many reports of an active shooter. Right now, we know there are 3 dead officially in Maryland right now.
Yeah, so the original call came out about 9:09 this morning, multiple shooting. We now know that it was at a Rite Aid distribution center in Aberdeen, just north of Baltimore. Originally, it was just multiple shots, multiple victims. We now have a confirmation that at least 3 are dead. We know that there's been a heavy ambulance presence, multiple ambulances leaving the scene, ATF on the scene, FBI on the scene, and of course all local law enforcement. Harford County Sheriff has been the one that's been tweeting out a lot of the updates, as they obviously were the local jurisdiction there to take the lead on the case. We have also heard that it is an active shooter situation, that there are some schools in the area that are on lockdown, so we don't have the update as to where that stands, but just Harford County Sheriff again reporting that it is still a fluid situation. So obviously a scene that hasn't been necessarily secured, or perhaps a situation that is over. So obviously that's unnerving for all, but that's pretty much where it stands. I was trying to pull up here. Governor Hogan actually sent out a tweet before we had a lot of information. Governor Hogan tweeted out that we are closely monitoring the horrific shooting in Aberdeen. Our prayers are with all those impacted, including our first responders. The state stands ready to offer any support. So that tweet was pretty ominous. Obviously, sounds like he has information that we are not privy to at this point. But we have crews obviously that are headed that way for our broadcast, and then they have said they're going to have a media update at 11:45, a press conference. So
yeah, perfect. And we do have that scene. Actually, you can take a look at them setting the stage here for that press conference, getting ready at 11:45. And that tweet on your screen, I guess there is the original tweet below, and then of course he goes on to say that they're assisting, the police and sheriff are assisting. But yeah, unfortunately, there's a bit of limited information here with this.
Yeah, not a lot coming in quickly, other than the fact that obviously it's going on. We know that there are multiple victims, that there's possibly an active shooter still out there, that they're still looking for possibly one shooter, if not more. We just don't know, and that it happened at the Rite Aid distribution center. So, and our understanding is that it's in an area where there are a lot of businesses, you know, kind of like a commercial park there.
Yeah, interestingly, I mean, I feel like months ago we were just dealing with something like this in the Baltimore area. There was another workplace shooting, and it reminded me of that when these were coming out.
Yeah, with the newspaper shooting. I was thinking about that when Governor Hogan's tweet came out. I was like, he was just in Annapolis for that shooting where there were 5 victims, I believe. But you know, unfortunately, it seems like we hear of active shooter situations or multiple shootings fairly common in the news. It's like it's one of those things now where we're not even surprised, unfortunately, when it happens. We just kind of go into that mode of, okay, here we go again. Let's cover this and find out what it is. And you know, the questions are, did the person have the guns legally? You know, is it a domestic violence situation? Is it a workplace, a disgruntled worker? You know, all those different scenarios always come to mind. Unfortunately, we've been here too many times before.
Absolutely, and you can see in the lower right-hand corner of your screen there, chopper video of this scene again. Like you said, heavy security, police presence, this warehouse area of many businesses. I believe earlier reports were saying it was a Clorox warehouse. Now we know.
Now they've made the confirmation. I think Rite Aid actually confirmed that it was their distribution center. So it's in an area. We see tactical teams going into place as we're monitoring different things. I think we just saw some of them walk by there. You can see, that they're obviously that looks like it's still an active scene, not necessarily one that has been cordoned off and done with, and now they're just trying to figure out what happened. It looks like there's something still going on there. So, of course, the situation's still to be monitored. And again, this is in Aberdeen, Maryland.
Yeah, like we said earlier, one of the first people to kind of give information about this was the governor himself. So Larry Hogan tweeting about this this morning, calling it a horrific situation, horrific shooting in Aberdeen. And just to repeat what we know, 3 victims right now.
We have confirmation of 3 dead, and word that it's still an active shooter situation, meaning that obviously they haven't maybe necessarily apprehended the person or persons that they feel is responsible for this.
And you can see, as we showed you earlier, setting up the stage here for the press conference, and hopefully we just get what we know. If we don't know if it's all going to come out now, but we'll get what they have.
Well, I will say this: if they are having a press conference, they have something that they want to share. So that's going to happen at 11:45, and so at that point, obviously, I'm guessing they will confirm the casualties, and then whether it is still an active shooter situation, who they might be looking for, if they have a description, if they have an idea of what they think has gone on here, if in and around the area, businesses and schools are on lockdown, information that they want to disseminate to parents of those kids in school, obviously for people that have loved ones that, friends and family that work in that area, they'll want to try to get as much information out as they can to help put those people at ease.
And you mentioned earlier, we don't know if schools are on lockdown around yet.
I thought we received one word earlier that at least one school was on lockdown, and I think we did receive word that several businesses in the area were on lockdown, which would also indicate that perhaps it still is an active situation, or at the very least, they are working to make sure that it's not an active situation. Sometimes in this scenario, we see they have someone in custody, but then they need to do a thorough search and make sure that everything's clear. So we just don't know where that stands right now, but of course we're hoping to get more information at 11:45. I'm not sure exactly what time it is. In about 10 minutes.
Yeah, about 10 minutes coming up shortly. I know the words that we used, of course, also in our report, is that the authorities saying the situation is still fluid. So again, what that exactly means, we'll find out in a little bit. But multiple dead, 3 confirmed dead in this active shooter situation in Aberdeen, Maryland.
Yeah, I know. It's just another day where people just went to work and surely weren't expecting something like this to happen. In looking at, I don't know, can we see the aerial views?
Yeah,
can we share those?
This is the most that we have.
Yeah, but you can see it's a huge distribution center. I mean, it's very, very large. So one would assume, obviously, they have numerous employees, and then of course, if they're trying to secure an area, if someone is on the run or whatever, obviously there are lots of places to go. Now it looks like this team right here is just kind of they were standing there.
So
they don't. It doesn't
Right.
look like it's an emergency situation where they're getting in place, but just kind of maybe perhaps standing by and waiting to see what it is they need to do. So maybe that's possibly a good sign that maybe someone is in custody and they feel like the situation is under control. At this point, obviously, we just don't know. And again, we'll get more information when they have their official press conference, which they are setting up for staging. You've been showing that as well. And so everyone will be getting in place. I know a lot of obviously the media is working to get there and get in place. And there's been a lot of roads that have been cordoned off, so traffic in and around the area. They've been asking people to avoid that area, and it would be tough to get through that area. So the media obviously looking to get there in place so that they can get the information when it comes out at 11:45.
Yeah, and we have some more information just from the police tweeting out just about the staging area for this, and all those details are coming out. So we're just following these tweets as much as we can and hoping to bring them to you as the situation is ongoing. But
here we go. So this is coming from the Aberdeen Police Department. That's a good tweet. Information on a staging area for families to be reunited is forthcoming. So that's what I was saying. That's some of the information that I think that we'll get in that 11:45 news conference, and obviously those are extremely important details for people that are worried about their loved ones and obviously in a panic, not knowing what's going on, but just hearing the term, active shooter, multiple people dead, obviously is enough to strike fear in anyone's heart if you have someone that you love in that area.
Exactly, and we have the sheriff as well, same thing, tweeting about the staging area. So that is coming up at 11:45, soon to come. We can still see these tactical teams kind of, like we said, with a little less urgency, but staging around these buildings, and it looks like they're doing something here. So
they're definitely lined up outside the building there. And I will say, they've got their hands on their guns, so it's,
it does look fairly active.
They're at the standby for sure, and at the ready. For something that may come our way. So obviously they targeted in on that specific building, as we were mentioning. It's such a huge complex. There's a lot of
1501. Looks like
1501. Exactly right.
And they detailed this was, I guess officially it's Perryman, Maryland. So
it is Perryman, Maryland. Okay.
Yep. So that's a little bit of information. But yeah, if you guys are jumping on with us here on YouTube or on our website, Holly Morris here from our newsroom, you know her from our morning show, coming down into the newsroom and coming right over here to get the information. And you guys ended the show kind of with this.
Yes, we did. Well, it's been a very busy news day. There's been a lot of things breaking, but yeah. So the first initial call, I think they said came out about 9:09. So about I don't know, 30 minutes into Good Day. DC was our first report that something was going on up there, and then we've been continuing to follow it throughout. And then, of course, it was not even conclusive when the show ended at 11 o'clock. How many people were dead? Just that it was a multiple shooting. That has since come down since the 11 o'clock hour. You can see more. Yeah. Armored vehicles going in place there.
Coming in. And like Holly said, it has been such a busy news day. We are planning on playing out, again, the press briefing more locally to D.C. with Chief Peter Newsham about the stabbing in Logan Circle, a horrible, horrible incident this week. So I am going to play that out just a few moments after it happened, but more details coming out about that arrest and that suspect, and now this, which is ongoing. So we'll stay with this until we get more information and we have that press conference. Yeah, thanks to Holly for getting some information to us.
My pleasure.
Hanging out here on our digital station. And we're going to be searching around for some more tweets, kind of looking for some updates here.
See what we can
Holly,
find.
do you see anything?
Yeah, I'll let you know. It's one of those things. I mean, you know, the information comes in fast and furious.
Yeah, even the sheriff's office just tweeting out here, just know that this is us for the official information. There are rumors out there,
and that is so key because that's the thing about social media, right? People tweet different things, and you just don't know what's verified and what's not. So it is always good to stick, obviously, with the official channels, be it your law enforcement channels. Obviously, the governor would have information, and then our reporters obviously are working the story, and of course, they're not going to go with anything unless their sources are verified. So. You definitely want to make sure you get the right information when you're following along, when a story is actually evolving and happening and active like this as we speak.
Yeah, and you can see just more action here with some of the teams and the canines all coming out. There's the Rite Aid sign pointing to the entrance.
Yeah.
So 1501 in that
again,
complex.
this is not one where it looks like they're like
in
an emergent mode. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. But this, you can see that, you know, they were down there on the corner as the aerial shot winds out. That is just a huge, huge facility. Well, as distribution centers are.
Right.
So, you know, this one being a distribution center for Rite Aid.
One more tweet just coming in from Governor Larry Hogan. He's confirming that he spoke with the county executive and the sheriff and just expressing his support. So he's kind of tweeting actively. Thank you guys for staying on the stream with us. I see some of you popping on our live stream chat. Let us know if you have questions or comments about this. Of course, we totally agree with you. The sentiment, it is an awful thing, and we're hearing a lot of awful breaking news this morning. You had a busy show this morning.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, the jogger in D.C. is so scary because in that news conference, the chief did confirm that it was random. She did not know her attacker, that it was unprovoked. She literally was just jogging along at 8 o'clock at night. And so I think that kind of strikes fear in everyone that it could have been anyone, and it could happen anywhere and at any time if you're in the DC area. Obviously, you know, Logan Circle is a very vibrant neighborhood that people go out, you know, in and feel safe being in. But I will say, definitely accolades go out to the police department. This happened in District 3. I mean, they were able to make an arrest in a very short amount of time, and so to be able to bring some kind of closure to that, I think is helpful. Though even Chief Newsham said himself, he said, you know, he did say, I want people to understand this kind of crime is very rare, not just for like this year. He said for his entire career, you know, and this is someone obviously who is a career law enforcement, been in it for decades. But he said at the same time, I know that brings no comfort to the family, the Martinez family. I mean, Wendy Martinez was 35 years old. She was in the prime of her life. She was successful and, you know, professionally. She just got engaged, you know, to be married and had so much life ahead of her. To have your life shortened in such a violent and traumatic way it's just hard for anybody to understand.
Absolutely, it's completely the incident. It was so harrowing for me also, and in that area, and hearing sort of the friends and family kind of come out about that. We'll have more of that on our evening news as well. The Vigils tonight in Logan Circle, and not to kind of switch the story, but that's another big one that we've been talking about this morning. But you're right, Chief Newsom's words. It's tough because does it really make you feel better? Well, it's some of the worst he's ever seen. So it is definitely a rare case, but scary, unprovoked, and more details on that in a little bit. But we want to also get back to this. Looks like they're doing some live reports here. We're getting a couple other shots of the scene.
Yeah, unfortunately, not as rare.
I know.
These workplace shootings that we see and the mass shootings that we see, and clearly that is something that we deal with all too often, and we seem to see it time and time again. And so people obviously asking, what is the answer to this? So.
Awesome. Yeah. Come on in, Annie.
Come on in, Annie.
Thank you. I'm just joining you ladies here.
Great.
I just got off the phone.
Oh, good.
I got off the phone with, there was an exchange of tweets on social media that got the attention of a lot of people. And so we followed up with the young woman who the tweets were with, and it was with her mom. So I just got off with her. Her mother, Christine, has worked at the Rite Aid Distribution Center for 15 years, and she was inside the Liberty Building. I think you reported that already, that there are two main buildings.
Oh, no, we didn't.
Okay, so the Rite Aid Distribution Center has two buildings. It's the main building where they store random products for the stores, and then the Liberty Building stores like seasonal items, furniture, that type of thing. And her mom worked in the Liberty Building, and her mom had indicated that the shooting happened inside the Liberty Building, which is next to the main building. Now, inside the Liberty Building, about 50 people work there. It's a very close-knit group. Her mom has worked there for 15 years. As soon as she heard the shots, she text messaged her daughters and told them, and these are direct quotes from the text messages. Her mom said at 9:31 this morning, "I love you both more than you will ever know. There is a shooter in the building. I am hiding. I love you. Be good and take care of daddy and the pets if something should happen." As soon as they received this text message, I know. They were waking up, and she said, immediately I tried to call her, tried to text message her, and it was an hour later that her mom got back to them via text message and said that she was okay. So now what's happening is Christine, the survivor, is being transported to a safe zone. They've basically loaded up all the employees that survived this shooting, this incident, onto a bus, and they're busing them to a safe zone nearby. We don't know exactly where that is, but I'm assuming it's near the distribution center. That is where they will be questioned and interviewed by police and authorities there. But she, I asked her about security. The main building apparently has metal detectors, and it's a lot more secure. The Liberty Building, the doors are secured in that you do have to have a badge to get in and out. It's for employees only. There's no metal detector. There's only one main entrance that you can enter through and exit. But she said there are lots of loading docks, those big garages that you can just pull up a tractor trailer. Yeah. And so her mom didn't relay any information about the shooter. Was this someone that they know?
And how are they? Did she say anything about how they were able to get out? Did they just run out after they heard the shots? Because in her original text, she inferred that she was like hiding, sheltering in place, or whatever.
Those are the questions that that we'll probably learn later, because right now her mom has basically stopped communication because she's being bussed, and she said she hadn't heard back from her mom. But she indicated she was hiding. You wonder, how did this shooter get in? First of all, it's a secured building, and she said her mom didn't relay to her whether it was a staff member or employee or someone who worked there, or if it was a random person in the building. But she said this area is basically a pretty deserted area. It's an industrial section. You've got the Clorox warehouse.
Oh, so that is there. There's a Clorox warehouse and the Rite Aid. I gotcha.
So you have just imagine one of those big industrial shopping centers where it's just nothing but brown buildings, really, and trucks everywhere. And she said at first, her mom had told her that they weren't sure where the shots were coming from, so that is why earlier we reported that it's near the Clorox warehouse, but really it is at the Rite Aid Distribution Center, and apparently they have two buildings there. So this is basically the latest from Alexi, and
amazing that you found that through the power of social media, right?
Truly, but your heart sinks when you see these types of things out there, because you know, it's like,
no one should ever have to send that text, and no one should ever have to receive that text. I mean, that is just imagine that mother's state of mind and or their daughter's state of mind when they received it. I just can't even wrap my head around that.
So we will keep in contact with Alexi and bring you guys more as we learn it, but that is a lot more than we knew before.
So again, so there's two different buildings. The Liberty building is the one with the seasonal items, and then there's the main building, and we think the shooting, or she said the shooting happened in the Liberty building, right? And there's about 50 people that work in there?
There's about 50 people. Now, Rite Aid also confirmed that they have about 1,000 employees at that whole center.
Oh, wow.
So you have 50 that work in the Liberty, according to Alexi, who also used to work there, and she indicated that this group, particularly, they're a close-knit group.
Interesting.
And they've worked there for a long time. And it's a separate building, smaller than the main building. She couldn't give me the exact size to kind of put it into perspective, but she said there was one main door, and it is a secure door.
Sure.
So those are the questions. How did this person get access to inside? And she said, as far as she knew, her mom told her it was one person that was
doing the shooting.
Yes.
I'm assuming she didn't make any comments on, like, did he just have one gun? I don't even know if it was he. I shouldn't say that. I assumed that, and saying that I shouldn't do that. Was it one gun? Did he have multiple weapons? You know, did he reload? Those are the kind of stories that we always hear when we talk about these mass shootings. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out, obviously.
It will be. And with the entrance information, it's interesting to see, we'll have to see, of course, if this is a person related to this company in any way.
Right.
If it's a
did they have
situation.
a badge? Or, you know, there are those, one employee can get in, someone can sneak in behind, can trail in behind,
or
piggyback.
If it's a nice day, they might prop the door open to let some of the breeze in. I mean, we don't know the circumstances, and so those are some of the questions that we're going to have to get answered. But you know,
or maybe through one of the docks, like you said, could have been open. You know what I mean?
But you know, you should have heard her voice when she when I asked her what was going through your mind when your mom finally got back to you. You know, it's just this huge sigh of relief, and she also had a sweet, heartwarming sentiment. I mean, she's really concerned for the others.
Well, sure.
And there are reports, although we have not confirmed, possibly 4 fatalities.
4. Okay, we had confirmed 3 dead,
yeah.
but it would not be surprised if the death toll went up, because we did hear that it was multiple shootings and lots of ambulances reported leaving the scene. So
and I'm keeping an eye on these screens, guys. We're coming shortly to that official press conference that slated for 11:45. It seems to be a bit late now, but we are keeping an eye on that. So it's coming up shortly. We'll find out more information.
All right.
Thanks, Annie. This was good.
Yes, you're welcome. I will try to find more information for you guys. And
thank you.
Bring that.
Come back when you can.
That'd be great. Okay. So again, setting the stage here. Here's our look. This should be starting shortly. I just had someone in the newsroom come up to me and tell us that this was coming up in the next few minutes. So
good.
Hopefully we are getting some word here. I'm looking for some more tweets, and we'll see what we can find.
That first news conference, it should be pretty informative. I think they'll be able to tell us quite a few answers to questions that we have. Obviously, they won't be able to tell us everything, as it's still in a fluid situation, an active story, one that's still developing as we speak. But even just from Annie's report there, we know if they've already been able to bus out, you know, the 50 employees or so that worked at the Liberty building, and that they're questioning them, that there's been things that have been happening, and they've been able to take care of some scenarios, and they'll be able to give us information to the like.
And according to Annie's information, isn't it incredible that small group is in that one building, the rest in the other?
Yeah.
So that's incredible.
Yeah.
That it was that close-knit group. Looks like they're testing some mics out, getting ready for this press conference. Again, we're here with Holly Morris from our morning show. More information. She ended the show with kind of a little bit of information, but not a lot, not too much. We have 3 confirmed dead still.
Yes, we have not gotten an update on that, and I'm sure that obviously that'll be one of the first things that they tell us in the news conference when it comes out, which should be momentarily. That's what we're looking for. And of course, we're monitoring Twitter and everything as much as we can to see
keep this
any new information.
Here.
Our chopper shot 5 for 3.
Skyfox should be up in the air too. We might be able to give some aerial shots just to give you kind of an idea of, though we saw some aerial shots of how big the distribution center is, and Annie saying that Rite Aid confirmed that about 1,000 people work there, I think she said. So, you know, that's a lot of people. It's a big area, but it's also kind of a, you know, it's just an industrial park. So it's not like there's a lot of, you know, people just walking around like a busy downtown center or busy business center or something like that, but just a place where people go to work. And from what Annie said, you know, a lot of those people, at least that one, the daughter of whom she talked to, their mother had worked there for 15 years. So it's a place she knows well and has been there for some time, obviously probably never imagining that she would be dealing with something like this.
And we're told we may get a chopper shot up in just a few moments, so we're kind of looking for that just to give you sort of that vast aerial view of what we're dealing with here, what we're looking at, that big warehouse area. We did see those tactical teams kind of honing in on that one building, so I wonder if that was the place.
Yeah,
that she
maybe
was
that's
describing.
the Liberty building that Annie was describing. Who knows? But we know there's obviously still a very, very strong law enforcement presence there, with both Hartford County Police and Sheriff there on the scene, FBI supposed to be on the scene, ATF arriving on the scene. So, you know, there's a lot going on there for sure. They're trying to figure out exactly what happens, and we haven't received any update about like the shooter itself, whether it's still an active shooter situation or whether someone's in custody or where that all stands. Again, hopefully we'll get that information in the news conference that should be starting any minute now, really.
Yeah, and even know for sure, and just to go back to these tweets from Governor Larry Hogan, one of the ones that sort of kicked off the information that we got right here, and I think you read this one on air. Yeah, so this was one of the first pieces of information, and right now still kind of waiting on that chopper shot, but we'll hopefully have more for you in a few moments, waiting on the official press conference as well outside of this warehouse in the Aberdeen area of Maryland. Take a look at that.
Looks like all the stations are in place. Obviously there would be media there from the Baltimore area, from the Washington, D.C. area, all the surrounding jurisdictions would be there wanting to get the latest information.
Great. All right, and we are also live here on YouTube and on Facebook and our website, fox5dc.com. I'm here with Holly Morris for this breaking news. And once we kind of roll into this press conference, we'll be able to put more information at the bottom of your screen also on where to read more about this and what exactly is happening. Looking at our chopper shot now, we got it up for you, and you can see just a couple of officers or workplace members or tactical team members coming into the scene here. We're waiting on this official press conference coming up shortly.
Again, that they don't look like it's an emergent situation, or it looks like everyone's just kind of assembling and kind of getting in place, getting up to date with whatever it is that they need to know, and of course, just keeping the area secure. Who knows what went down there this morning? Obviously something significant, and we're waiting to hear more details.
Yeah, Holly, like you said, not as much of an urgent display, but the last we heard, this was still an active fluid situation is what they used. So that's what we're waiting to sort of hear more about and confirm. Monitoring tweets closely as well.
That our crews are on the scene. We have seen them there, and they are getting ready to take the news conference as it happens. We'll, of course, be sharing that live across our platforms so that everyone can get informed as we get informed at the same time.
Exactly. All right. All right, this looks like to be our crew's shot here, getting ready for this press conference. We lost that for just a second, but our photojournalist, Ronnie McRae, is there setting up for this. So again, slated for 11:45, happening a bit late, but we're waiting on it. And the aerial views still going on with our chopper. Take a look at the some of the law enforcement there.
I always wonder too how interesting it is, you know, when you see like all the law enforcement that are out too, like how much do they know right now, or they're just being told, obviously given information as they need to know the information, but everybody trying to figure out exactly what went down here.
It is really interesting to think that, like who knows what right now.
Who knows what and when.
And the sheriff just now, we just catching this, tweeting out that they are delayed, which we knew, so it is coming up shortly. And they're streaming it to Facebook. We'll be streaming it here to our Facebook, as well as if you're on with us on YouTube or on our website, fox5dc.com. We are here with Holly Morris, Holly Live, Fox5DC on Twitter. And a bit of breaking news here at the end. And such a heavy day for breaking news.
Yeah,
really.
A lot of breaking news. It's been a very busy Thursday for sure. A lot going on. Just when you think it's going to be a quiet day, it never turns out that way, right? But this story definitely still yet to be written. I mean, there's a lot we don't know about what happened this morning up in near Aberdeen. We do know it took place at the Rite Aid Distribution Center. We confirmed that 3 people are dead, possibility of more casualties. We know that people have been taken from one of the buildings, from what Annie had learned from a daughter of a worker inside, that they've been transported to what they're calling a safe zone, where I'm sure they are trying to process what just happened, and obviously police talking to them as well to get some information. We haven't gotten any update as far as it being an active shooter situation still, though I don't have any reason to know that it's not, but it doesn't seem like the crews on the ground are in a particularly tense setting as we speak, but it's such a large area, we don't know. And you know, we don't know if there's been someone taken into custody, or if they know where that person is, who that person is, what the situation was that led to this. We just know that the first call came in about 9 minutes after 9 this morning. We know that the governor tweeted about it, saying it was a horrific shooting, which you know, obviously implies an ominous tone with it when you use that kind of word. And so we're just now awaiting word, really, to get updated on where things stand, what everyone needs to do, what people need to do if they have loved ones that are there, what people need to do if kids are in schools that are in and around that area. I'm sure a lot of people obviously have questions.
Yeah, and again, the aerial views here of the situation. And Annie had some really great information. That story is just harrowing, of the daughter texting her mother and not hearing back for an hour. You really can't imagine what you would feel in that situation with a child.
No,
or
I can't. I can't imagine the mother even having to send that text. You know, here she is. I mean, the mother implying that she was, you know, hiding, sheltering in place, that there's a shooter in her building. I don't know what's going to happen. And then obviously the daughter's getting that, getting the text, and then trying to call her mom and not being able to get a hold of her. And then an hour later, finally hearing that her mom's okay. Nonetheless, that's a harrowing is a great word, like you said. It's a harrowing morning for all parties involved there.
I remember the questions are many still remain, of course, and hopefully they'll be illuminated in this press conference. But as Annie was saying, the entrance to that building, the badges, how they get in, we could see sort of the vastness of this. If they zoom out in a little bit, this chopper video of just how big this lot is, this warehouse kind of business area, and you know, you'd think there may be some way around not beeping a badge to get in officially. There's, there are things, there are loading docks and things. So hopefully more details to come out
And if
about
someone
that.
wants to get in, they probably usually can.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's one of those things. It's just, you know, how do you combat evil? You know, you can't protect against every scenario.
Yes.
You know, so unfortunately, it's the world we live in, you know. We've talked about this. It's not even like you even hear the shock in our voices anymore. You know what I mean? Which is a sad statement in and of itself, right? So it looks like they're walking up to the podium now.
Perfect. So we'll take a listen here. We'll go over to our shot and listen into this press conference.
Director of Media and Public Relations for the Harford County Sheriff's Office. With me today, I have Sheriff Jeffrey Gaylor and our County Executive Barry Glassman to brief you on the events of this morning. I just briefly want to remind everyone that this is still a very fluid investigation. Watching the reports this morning, there was a lot of misinformation already out and circulating. And so I please urge you to follow the Sheriff's Office on our social media feeds. That will be information that is confirmed and vetted through our office. We will continue to update you throughout the day. We will not take any questions at this time after the Sheriff and the County Executive statements. And I will let you know on Twitter again when the next media briefing will be. Thank you.
What's the Twitter, man?
Harford_Sheriff.
Okay, thank you.
Another tragic event for us here this morning in Harford County. To begin with, I want to thank everyone for their patience. Unfortunately, the county exec and I and all of our law enforcement partners have been standing here before. We stand here yet again today. Many people have been affected by the events this morning, and our prayers and thoughts and prayers of the Harford County Sheriff's Office go out to all those affected. We are so preliminary into this investigation. I know there's a million questions. We're not going to take any questions today. I know you have many, but as Christy said, it's so important that we deal in facts. There's families that are irreparably harmed from today's event. We don't want to make it as if you could make it worse. You certainly can. We don't want to be part of that. We want to release facts, so please allow us the time to gather facts and share those with you. I'm going to give you as much information as we can right now, even though it's very preliminary and it's very limited. At about 9:06 this morning, a report came into dispatch center from the Rite Aid Distribution Center of shots fired. Immediately, deputies, officers, troopers, other first responders responded. We were on scene just in over 5 minutes. Arriving law enforcement, fire, and EMS units quickly paired up together, got into the building in order to render first aid where appropriate, treat patients, and an attempt to locate a suspect or suspects. At this time, I can confirm multiple wounded and multiple fatalities. Based on what we know right now, and again, very preliminary, the lone suspect in this incident is in custody and is in critical condition at a local hospital. It appears to be a single weapon that was used, a handgun, and there were no shots fired by any of the law enforcement officers responding to the scene. We do not believe that there's an additional threat anywhere to our Harford County community. We have set up a family reunification center working with the county executive and our county partners at the Level Volunteer Firehouse. And again, this investigation is very early. I and our office will be happy to give you more information as it becomes available. Again, I ask you keep the victims of today's tragic event in your thoughts and prayers. And I also have to thank our fellow first responders. We have responders here from the federal government who were on scene within minutes, the FBI, the DEA, ATF, state police, MDTA police, natural resources, the local municipal departments of Aberdeen, Grace, and Bel Air, you name it. As we've seen, unfortunately, in our community before, when something like this happens, you can't have enough police and you can't have them fast enough. And we are very fortunate here that everyone works so well together and responds so well together that we were on scene and able to get as much aid in as quickly as possible. So that's what we have for you at this time. Christy will put out a little later when we're going to have some additional details, and I know you're anxious for them. We'll be as timely as we can. And the county executive did want to offer a few thoughts this morning. Sir?
Can I get your name?
Sheriff Jeff Gaylor, G-A-H-L-E-R.
Thanks, Sheriff Gaylor. Barry Glassman, the Harford County executive. I just got off the phone with Governor Hogan a few moments ago and updated the governor on the incident so far as we know it. He offered all of his resources available under state government. We certainly appreciate the Maryland State Police, all the allied agencies that responded. You know, I followed this probably from the moment the call came in on our dispatch and listened to the radio transmissions. Unfortunately, in today's world, we have active shooter drilling and drills, and I can tell you and tell our Harford County citizens that every agency performed at the top of their profession, and the response from all our allied agencies was great. Our volunteer fire and EMS system responded with medical units. So I am thankful to all the agencies that came out to help us today to get through this, which is becoming a too often occurrence, not only in Harford County, but in the country. So with that said, we really reach out to those families that are suffering right now, that have lost loved ones, and offer our services as we begin to get them reunified, not only with loved ones lost, but with workers that have been displaced. So I certainly thank all our courageous men and women that have helped us this morning.
Sheriff, are you suggesting that the suspect shot his or herself? Jane, we're not going to give any additional information right now. Again, this is very fluid, and you know us, we will be sure to provide you the information as soon as we have it, so follow our feeds, and I will absolutely let you know when the next media briefing will be today, and hopefully we'll be able to nail down some of those other details and give you a better picture of what unfolded. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, well, that is what we believe to be the extent of the press conference. Not a whole lot of information.
No, I was surprised that they didn't confirm the number of people that were killed. They simply said that there are multiple people that are dead and multiple people that are injured. So we don't really know any more than that. Obviously, the biggest news probably to come out of it is that they believed it was a lone shooter, that shooter is in custody, and that shooter also suffered a gunshot wound, is in the hospital in critical condition. However, he did also note that no law enforcement discharged their guns. So was it a self-inflicted wound? You know, we just don't know. But they do believe that there is no imminent threat to anyone in that community, that it was a lone shooter, that shooter's in custody, and so the situation should be under control.
Yeah, and again, now you're looking still at aerial views of this area here, and we have Tisha Lewis, who is, I believe, going on our air, and we're going to kind of jump into her live shot if she's providing one shortly, because she may be giving some information. Let's listen in.
The sheriff and also the county executive and first responders arrived here. You can see them behind me over my right shoulder. They are still here just seconds after this news conference wrapped up. Sheriff Jeff Gaylor and the county executive both calling this a tragic event, also stressing that this is still very preliminary in the investigation. The sheriff saying that they wanted to make sure that they are dealing in facts. Now, here's a timeline, a little bit of what transpired. They say shortly after 9 o'clock, the call came into dispatch from this Rite Aid distribution center reporting that shots were fired. They say that their team responded in just about 5 minutes and immediately began to render aid. They say that they can confirm there were multiple wounded and also multiple fatalities, also saying that a lone suspect is responsible for this tragedy this morning. They say that suspect is in custody, also in critical condition at a nearby hospital, emphasizing that a single weapon was used. At this point, they're telling us that there is a family reunification center that'll be taking place at one of the local firehouses. Again, you can just see that everyone obviously is very somber, and it's really a somber mood out here at the media staging center. The sheriff and also the county leaders urging everyone to keep the families, the victims' families, in your thoughts and prayers, and also the witnesses who saw this tragedy unfold in your thoughts and prayers as well. Back to you.
So that was Tisha Lewis doing her hit for our air. We broke into our air, and Holly Morris is here in the newsroom with me on digital. If you're joining us on YouTube or Facebook, thanks for continuing on the stream. I'm going to post our recent story, which details some of the stuff that we know. Again, the authorities not confirming that it was 3, but we had heard earlier that officials said 3 have died in this incident. A suspect is in custody. They believe he or she was a lone suspect. And so that's the information that we have. She also didn't even say when the next briefing would be, but that they would let the public know on Twitter.
Yeah, via Twitter. And they did also say that the gunman had a handgun, a single handgun. That was another piece of information that we did get from the scene. But you know, other than that, they reacted quickly and it seemed like they were on the scene quickly, and that they obviously talked about the reunification center for families to meet back up with their loved ones who, of course, people, if you had a loved one there, you would be worried beyond belief, right? Until you found out they were okay. So now it's, you know, it's a waiting game until more information comes out and as people work their sources, and we wait for law enforcement to release official details. But of course, they did emphasize as well that this is a fluid situation. You know, it's ongoing, and they're trying to figure it out just like we're trying to figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah, so more details to come. And again, I'm going to post that link right here in the live chat. So if you're on with us on YouTube, we'll also post it on Facebook. If you have questions or comments, let us know on those feeds, and we'll try to bring you the latest information. Right now, we have a little bit of a shot here. Still kind of they're working the scene, tactical teams here and security. And we continue to kind of monitor this, but unfortunately, another set of victims will come out. We'll get those names. This will be another incident. We've seen this before. We've seen it not only in the Gazette, the shooting in Annapolis, but there was another warehouse type business disgruntled employee shooting.
There was, yes.
Months ago.
There was. I do remember that. Yeah.
And we talked about, I believe it was in
It was also in the Baltimore area, was it not?
I
believe, I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was Aberdeen per se, but I remember it being in the Baltimore area, and it being also like a business park type area.
Still to be fleshed out, of course.
Wasn't it like a tile company?
I believe so.
It was a tile company.
It's coming back
like
to
that?
me.
Yeah. How sad is it that we can be like, oh,
that one,
right, and that there are so many that you can't even totally remember exactly because they seem to be so frequent. Because remember back in the days, I mean, you know, when Columbine happened, you know, I mean, that was imprinted in our minds forever, and you know, everyone could, if you were around at that time, obviously could tell that story. Now we hear of workplace shootings and mass shootings, and we've had several just here in our area, and that sometimes it's hard to keep them all straight, which is a significantly sad statement to make, right? So
absolutely, yeah. So yeah, we'll continue to bring you the information, following us here on Twitter, Fox 5 DC, and our website, YouTube, and Facebook. We'll put it all out there for you, and when we have more information, we'll bring it to you. Unfortunately, not a whole lot right now, and still it remains to be seen more information, names, anything else. Let's jump back in because Tisha Lewis might have a little more information here.
Lockdown. We don't see any schools in our view at this point, but it's mainly industrial buildings, which is a good thing because that obviously minimizes the foot traffic that investigators and police in the area have to deal with, in addition to investigating exactly what happened. Sure. Well, just to echo the sentiment that you just said, police telling us that the public is safe. They do not believe that there are any additional suspects out there, that this suspect did in fact act alone. There was a single weapon, and I can tell you that it has the same feeling that so many of these similar incidents have. It's just a heaviness in the air, a sadness in the air, especially for law enforcement, that were up close and personal at the Rite Aid distribution center when they arrived and immediately saw several people who were wounded and several people who had passed. You can see on their faces the heaviness as they were relaying that scene and that situation to us. And so obviously they just reiterated that everyone is praying for the families involved. And of course, the people who survived will now remember this day for all the wrong reasons.
correct. They did specify that it was a single person with a handgun.
They gotta talk to us.
Who's in the booth, Matt?
All right, so we'll bring you back to these aerial shots right here, and really that's the information that we have right now.
You know, it's interesting though, because you did hear Tisha say that, you know, law enforcement just have this feeling that they always have, obviously, when they're in this setting. You know, it's a heaviness, it's a sadness. And you and I were trying to think of the workplace shooting that happened in a year ago. It was almost a year ago. It was in October of 2017, and it was Harford County. And if you remember at the start of the news conference, there was like this sigh from the sheriff. He was like, unfortunately, we've been here before. And specifically, they have. That one happened in the Edgewood area. It was, again, like a business park, so to speak. And that was a kitchen countertop company. And I think there were 3 people that were killed in that and 2 others injured as well. And then there was this manhunt, and they ended up arresting the suspect in Delaware. But all of that to say, here we are again, you know, almost a year later in the same county in a very similar situation with 3 confirmed dead as we speak.
Right, and I remember that was such a scary situation with the manhunt. They hadn't caught him. It took them a day or 2. I can't remember, but definitely hours. In this case, we know the lone suspect, as they believe, is in critical condition. So that's what we have on that, and no information really on how that suspect got injured, but I'm sure we'll find out. We have a couple tweets coming in from the Harford County Sheriff, some of it thanking, of course, the police and the FBI and people coming to help investigate, but also just some notes here that they continue to be in these early stages of the situation. It will be released, and there's some information about family reunification as well. So in Havre de Grace, Maryland.
Yeah, that's good to know at the volunteer firehouse there for people that are looking for that information, so they can go meet up with their loved ones and find that they are safe. So Harford County, they're doing the best they can. They're working through it.
They are. All right. Well, you guys can follow us, of course, on our social media platforms, Fox 5 DC on all platforms. Right here on YouTube, we're going to keep up this shot for just a little bit and kind of see what we can gather and then move on. Of course, I do want to tell the story about the Logan Circle stabbing and kind of play out that press conference for you in case you missed it. Another local tragedy in DC. And we'll continue to update you. So stay on with us. I'll post that link as well here on YouTube and on Facebook. Thanks, Holly, for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit and come back into the newsroom here. I'm joined by Bob Barnard, our morning reporter, who is just kind of finishing up his day, but was covering one of the most important stories from this morning, and that is the Logan Circle stabbing and murder of Wendy Martinez, 35 years old, Tuesday night, sort of just after dusk, just before 8 p.m.
7:30, 8 o'clock.
And this story has really just taken the headlines, a grip on the headlines for the past few days. And of course, it resonates with a lot of us that live locally and that are kind of connected to this. But Bob's been covering this all morning. We found out some stuff this morning, and I'm going to play that press conference in a little bit. But first from Bob.
Sure. Basically, there's been an arrest in the case that the authorities, DC police, working with members of the community who were helpful in providing information to police, detectives, and patrol officers with the 3rd District substation there in DC, were able to arrest this guy, Anthony Crawford, 23 years old. Now that's him there on the right, and you could see sometimes like lights at night on a street from a surveillance video could change the colors, but it looks like he's wearing a mustard colored shirt there, and in fact he was. So that was one of the key identifying factors according to DC police, is that at that hour, a little before 8 o'clock, at 11th and P Streets in Northwest, which 11th Street kind of divides Logan Circle from Shaw, so it was right there in between. There were people out at a restaurant across the street sitting outside. That's Wendy Martinez, Wendy Karina Martinez, 35 years old there on the left. After she was stabbed at that intersection, 11th and P, she ran into a carry-out restaurant right there, a Chinese restaurant, but she was bleeding, and we've shown the very graphic, but we've kind of blurred it a bit. You can see her running in there, and she's bleeding, and people don't know what to do, and they're freaking out. But there were other people who were actually at a restaurant sitting outside and on the street and saw that guy with that yellow shirt walking away from the scene, and were able to tell police. They subsequently found that surveillance video that there he is, the guy with the yellow shirt walking away, calmly walking away from the scene after butchering this woman with a knife. They found the knife, they found that video, they put the video out. This happened Tuesday night, so yesterday the video goes out, and police got calls, we believe, from some family members and others who said that's who this is. They went out looking for him, and then they found him at a park at 14th and Girard Street, closer to Adams Morgan, around midnight or so, and he was suffering from a wound of some sort to his hand. We're not sure if it was a self-inflicted wound or if it was a wound carried over from the attack on the woman with the knife, but they were able to, he was not cooperative but didn't fight the police. They took him into custody, took him to the hospital, and have subsequently charged him today with first-degree murder. They believe he was the only one involved, and that it was just a completely random attack, that she was just running through the neighborhood as she has, running west on P, was attacked there right at the intersection, and then he walked calmly south on 11th Street and walked away, and was not dressed the same way. So at some point he went home or somewhere and changed. There were some people who thought maybe this was a homeless guy, but no, apparently they didn't identify where exactly, but he lived somewhere in Northwest. Clearly changed his clothes, but hadn't taken care of this wound on his hand. Again, if it was sustained at the time of the attack Tuesday night or subsequently, maybe he slit his wrist, we don't know, but there was some kind of hand injury. And he's now in custody, and at the announcement, which you'll show again from police, the police spoke, the Mayor Bowser, the police chief Peter Newsham, and then some friends of Wendy's gathered there. One of them, Christina Moore, spoke on behalf of the four of them, just saying this crazy, awful random attack has left a hole in their heart. She had so much life to give and was a wonderful person. Just very dramatic and emotional out there. Yes,
the details are incredible. And just how they, again, like Bob said, and you'll see this in a second in the official press conference, but that this man did have a home. He was not homeless, according to police.
Yeah, has a criminal record, but they wouldn't detail what all that is. And we live in different jurisdictions, or people who work here live in Maryland, DC, Virginia. They all have different ways of handling mugshots. We will not see a mugshot of this guy. If he was arrested in Montgomery County or Fairfax County, we would see a mugshot. All we have to go with is this surveillance video still, this screen grab from the video, because in DC, when someone's arrested, they don't put out a mugshot. So it may be a while before, even though this guy's got a criminal history, a criminal record, that we find a photograph of him. But that's the best we've got right now. 23-year-old guy and
23.
Yeah, roaming the streets with the capacity, allegedly, according to police, to murder someone just randomly for no reason, no robbery, no nothing, just no motive. He just went out and attacked this woman at the corner while she was running by.
And that's one of the scariest details I think all of us believe of all of it is that, and you'll see it in a second, Chief Peter Newsham saying it's one of the it's something that he hasn't seen in almost his entire career. It's something that random and that devastating.
And there's been a couple of different reactions. I spoke to Jack Evans, who's a DC council member, after the news conference, off to the side, and he's like, I run, and I wear headsets, and I run at night.
Yes.
He says he's not going to change the way he does what he does because he believes that this was completely random and like there was nothing she did to warrant this. It was just this crazy situation where allegedly this guy, Anthony Crawford, 23 years old, was there on the street corner with a knife and attacked her.
Right.
Earlier this morning, I spoke to a young lady who was going out for a run. It was after dawn.
Yes,
she said normally she runs before dawn, and normally she runs with headphones or earbuds in, and it was after daybreak, and she was not wearing earbuds, and she said she's going to change the way she goes about doing things because of what happened. Jack Evans did say, be aware. Be aware of your surroundings, but don't change what you're doing because this could have happened to anyone at any time in any neighborhood. If there's someone out there who's crazy enough to do something like that, and you're just not in a position of awareness right away, and who would be, to do something, to run or defend yourself, what are you going to do?
Yes, and I will say, and it's all good information to not change your ways. This is completely random, but it has definitely just knowing the neighborhood spooked the neighborhood.
People are just coming out crying, just standing there looking at and just shaking their head. One lady came up and I won't use the words, but she basically said, "I just wanted to come here, see this, and say F you to the killer." Not knowing who he was. At that point, we didn't know someone had been arrested. But there is outrage and shock.
Yeah, I will say, even in me, it's conjured up a little bit of that. It's sadness. It's also anger that this has had to happen in our safe neighborhoods.
It could happen to anybody.
It's really, really tough, and I think a lot of us are kind of still grappling with it. But really, really sad case, and we'll have more details in that press conference. But I thought what was really interesting was that they didn't even find him based on the color shirt he was wearing. It was sort of descriptions of bystanders, wasn't it?
Right.
Essentially.
They didn't and you'll hear the chief didn't give all the details on how they came about arresting this guy, except for that he was identified by people on the street. They found the video by putting the video out there. I think some people said, that just by the demeanor, and this is what we have, what we've just been showing people is just a screen grab of the guy walking, but the video shows him kind of like, he's just kind of like humdy-dumdy, like calmly walking down the street. And it's that particular gait, the kind of the way he walked, wearing that shirt, that someone probably said, he's not been convicted, obviously, he's just been charged, but someone clearly said, that's Anthony. Anthony's got that shirt, and that's his walk. So I think based on that, based on people in the community saying, hey, it's a guy with a yellow shirt, they found the video, they put it out there, hey, it's this guy with the yellow shirt who's our suspect, and then someone recognizing, that guy, we know who has that yellow shirt and who walks that weird way, or different kind of way. They were able to identify him, went to where he is known to stay or live, or whether it's his family or friends or whoever he lives with. He's 23, so I was thinking maybe he's still living at home, off and on. But they went there, he was not there, and then by patrolling the neighborhoods, they see this guy sitting in the park, and they must have known, hey, Anthony, if this is, he's been charged. They've arrested him. But whoever told him must have said, hey, Anthony's dressed like this now. And they went and they didn't say what that is. He was not dressed as he was the other night. But, he's now wearing a ball cap and a blue shirt. Look for him. And they saw him. So somehow they knew what they were looking for. And they found him in this park. And took him into custody. So and the chief, and you'll hear in the mayor, applauded the community for, rising up and helping them nail this guy.
Yeah. Something also completely jarring and hard for me and others, of course, to grapple with was that police say there wasn't any evidence of some sort of robbery or stopping to talk about, give me your cell phone, give me your money. No evidence of that.
No, and we may find out subsequently that he has a history of mental health issues or substance abuse issues or something. It, from all appearances, at least what we know so far, was just her running by and him being there with the capacity to attack. For no reason, not looking for money, to grab her, to grope her, to talk politics with her, nothing. Just he was there, she was coming through, and and he attacked her. So they don't. There's in terms of a motive, it's in his head. If again he is the guy who did it,
right?
Because there was nothing. It was just an immediate attack. It could have been the next person who came through,
right,
or an old lady walking her dog, or a businessman with a briefcase walking by. I mean, he chose her at that moment for whatever reason, but not like she was targeted for a reason other than she just happened to be going by.
What we can say is that the swift response from law enforcement was pretty amazing, and people are very much a little bit more, at least, at ease about that.
Well, yeah, because I mean, the fact that this guy who could randomly kill someone would still be out there.
Scary.
I mean, just a freaky notion. Yeah.
Yes.
And so the news conference will have the mayor and the chief. We kind of disconnected to go talk to some people, and then we came back and reconnected when the friends spoke. So I don't know if that's part of this coverage or not.
I hope we have that. I'm not quite sure if we do.
I mean, there was a little bit of a time gap between the time and at the end of the official news conference on the stabbing death of Wendy Martinez, the fire chief came up to give like kind of an update on that apartment community fire in Southwest from last night. So there's a little bit of time distance between the officials talking about this crime and the friends, but the friends were very compelling and
really, I'm going to try to find that full video.
If you want to share that with people, because it was.
I want to see that too.
Yeah, it was pretty.
Yeah, definitely.
And sad.
It is, and of course, people coming out, friends, families, people connected to Wendy, and I even saw an Instagram post this morning from a friend of a friend who knew her. There is a vigil tonight in Logan Circle at 7 p.m.
Right, at 7 o'clock. They said they haven't gotten all the details. Like, I guess there's some red tape about having a. I believe they're going to. The mayor was there, the police chief. I'm sure they're going to say yes. Go ahead and do it. So 7 o'clock tonight, Logan Circle. And as we were, we see all kinds of different stuff, and you keep your ears open. As we were leaving and packing up to leave, I walked by and there was a lady there, which doesn't normally, catch your eye, but I could also not hear her. She's sobbing. So I went back just to make sure she was okay, and I asked, and she said, yeah, she was a friend of Wendy's. She was across the street, kind of standing between two parked cars on the sidewalk there, just glancing over at the scene, the corner, and with all the police and the media and the
just kind of watching what
it was all over, but it was just kind of breaking up, and she was just loud enough that I could hear as I walking by, sobbing, just standing there quietly by herself.
Sure.
And there was another friend. So this Wendy Martinez obviously had apparently been here 8 years. She'd been a student at the University of Florida and Georgetown. So she, between her school friends, her neighborhood friends living right down the street, and her work community, knew a lot of people. So this random ass crime has totally devastated a lot of people.
Definitely. A headline that has really gripped news both locally in the DMV and also nationally. I've heard people talking about it everywhere, of course.
There were network correspondents out there who were, doing network television reports that people were watching all over the country. Absolutely. On this just crazy story.
It really is. So definitely a day for some really horrible tragedies and breaking news, unfortunately. Bob covering that this morning. So it was a great debrief. Thank you for that information. And so what I'm going to do is try to dig up that full video for you guys to see the chief of police, the mayor. I know they go through some fire stuff from the fire yesterday as well. And then
you can break off and bring in the friends up there, because
I'd like to try to find all of that
if you can.
Okay, well, stay on with us for that. We're going to dig that up and be back. And of course, any more information about the shooting in Maryland and in the Aberdeen area, we're going to bring that to you as well live. So I know another one, hoping for some more details to kind of flesh out about that suspect and sort of what's going on there.
Yeah, we're hearing it could be a woman.
Oh, I didn't hear that yet.
Yeah, we're hearing the suspect. It could be a woman who's in custody and in critical condition. And, the numbers have been, I think the governor put out there, it's horrific, and it is 3 people killed. I mean, when you hear horrific, you think many more, and they're using the word multiple, and they didn't, the officials, the sheriff there didn't say a number, but the number we're hearing is that 3 people were killed and others wounded, and those numbers could go up, depending.
Wow.
Yeah, just kind of crazy.
It really is. So we don't really expect another update until probably mid to late afternoon. We don't really know. We'll keep our ear out for that. But I'm going to dig up that full press conference, so that's coming to you next, about Wendy Martinez, the murder Tuesday night in Logan Circle. Thanks, Bob.
You bet, Mom.
Good morning. I'm Uriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. I'm joined by Peter Newsham, the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, Councilmember Jack Evans, to provide a briefing on the arrest in the murder of Wendy Martinez. Wendy was a D.C. resident, a jogger, and a proud resident of Washington, D.C., and member of our community. She was senselessly murdered near where we stand at 11th and P Streets Northwest on Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. While people acted quickly, including our emergency responders, to try to help Wendy, she succumbed to her injuries. Wendy's murder has been devastating to her family and friends, people in this neighborhood, and certainly damaging to all of our senses of safety. I want to thank MPD, our detectives and officers, on their quick investigation of this crime. I want to let you know that MPD made an arrest last night, and we feel very confident that we have in our custody the person responsible for this murder. I want to turn to Peter Newsham to provide you more details.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Bowser. As you know, this past Tuesday, September 18th, just before 8 p.m., members of the 3rd District responded here to this carryout for the report of a stabbing victim. When they arrived, they found 35-year-old Wendy Martinez suffering from life-threatening stab wounds. She was being tended to by members of the public, including a nurse from our community. DC Fire and EMS responded. They transported Wendy to a local hospital where she was pronounced dead. What we have learned from our investigation at this point is that Wendy, who was known as an avid runner, was jogging westbound on P Street. When she arrived at this intersection at 11th and P, the suspect was at the intersection and stabbed her. We believe that there was only one person involved in the assault. We do not have any information to suggest that Wendy knew or had any association with the suspect in this case. We also do not have any information at this point to suggest that it was a robbery, so the motive in this case right now is unknown. Yesterday morning, we released surveillance video showing a person of interest in the case. A combination of information that we received from our 3rd District patrol officers and tips from the community helped our homicide detectives establish the identification of this person of interest that was shown in the video. Homicide detectives last night searched the surrounding areas. They located this individual in a park at 14th and Girard Street Northwest. He was transported to the homicide division for questioning. Sufficient probable cause was established, and this morning we arrested and charged 23-year-old Anthony Crawford of Northwest DC with first-degree murder while armed. Wendy, as most of you know, was recently engaged. She was an accomplished professional who by all accounts was beloved by family and friends. I cannot even begin to imagine what her fiance, what her family, what her mom, what her brother, what her friends are going through right now, and I want to extend our heartfelt condolences to this family. I also want to thank the community for their assistance, not only for attempting to provide medical assistance on the scene, also by being cooperative with our detectives and responding to the homicide unit on the night of this offense, and lastly by providing the tips which were instrumental in closing this case. I also want to recognize the efforts of our 3rd District Patrol officers, our homicide unit, and in particular Detective Alexander Vogel. We can take, I think, any questions that you all might have.
Chief, can you give us any details about Mr. Crawford? Was he homeless? Did he have a history of mental illness? I mean, is there anything you can provide?
He was living in Northwest DC, so he had a home in Northwest DC. So he was not homeless. It's not our understanding that he was homeless. He does have a criminal history. We are still going over that to identify the extent of that criminal history.
have investigators been able to glean any kind of motivation here?
We don't have a motive in this case. We do not.
Can you talk a little bit about how you tracked him down? How important was that surveillance video?
The surveillance video, like I said, and the cooperation of the public in providing tips was really the key to closing this case. Having patrol officers who were familiar with the community and the folks in this community was also helpful. You know, whenever you have, you know, kind of this unexplained type of brutal attack that happens in our city, you know, we do everything we possibly can to get to the bottom as quickly as we can. And so it was a combination of efforts by the community, by the police, that we're able to get this guy relatively quick.
We heard, hold on 1 second here. Straight ahead.
We had heard that this suspect may have had some wounds on his hands. Was he injured in any way?
The suspect was taken to the hospital for an injury that he has on his hand, yes. The suspect did not cooperate with us. Yes? All of that will be looked into, and as you know, we will look very carefully at the suspect's past to see if there was some indication that would lead someone to this type of violence. So that will be, we will be taking a look at not only his criminal past, but if he had any mental health issues or substance abuse issues that potentially we could have taken care of. Yeah, that type of information will become available once he's presented in court, that kind of detail. You know, we were able to talk to multiple witnesses, and we don't have anything to suggest that there was any type of confrontation between the two. It looks like it was an unprovoked attack.
Was someone able to see, like identified him, and then you matched it to the video that that's the guy they're describing? Is that how you got him?
Yeah, you know, a couple things about the video, although it was a little bit grainy, and I know you've all seen the video, there was a very distinct shirt that the suspect was wearing. You could see that he was wearing sweatpants. He had white socks and sandals on. I think that uniqueness of the video is the type of thing patrol officers, like I said, had a very good sense as to who this person of interest was. We had some folks in the community who did a fantastic job of identifying this folks. We were able to marry up that information. And fortunately, we were able to locate this suspect over at 14th and Girard. We were able to establish a little bit more probable cause, and we had enough to make an arrest.
Can you tell us a little bit about the stabbing itself? Was it all in one location? Did the gentleman follow the victim?
Yeah, without getting into too much detail, you know, our understanding is this happened very quickly. The victim in this case, and I have a hard time talking about this publicly because I know that there is a family who is watching, and this is a difficult thing, I think, for them to have to relive. But she was injured very severely. She made her way into the carryout behind me. Thankfully, there were some folks in the carryout who really went above and beyond to try and help her until police and fire could arrive on the scene. But unfortunately, they couldn't do enough to save her life. We're still combing through his criminal history. We don't have. I'm going to let the ambulance pass. We're still combing through his criminal history right now, but we do not have any indications of violence in his criminal past.
What was he doing when your officers approached him?
I don't have that information.
Maybe this is a question for you or the mayor. What do you say to people in the rest of the city who are shaken up by this, who felt less safe because of this?
I mean, I don't know if the mayor wants to comment. What I would say is, I live in this city. I think that it is unsettling for anyone who lives in this city to see something like this happen. This is a very isolated instance. You don't see crimes like this very much, even during the course of my career. So it's a very unlikely thing that occurred here at this intersection. At the same time, I'm sure that doesn't bring any level of comfort to the Martinez family.
What time was the arrest made, and where did you apprehend the suspects?
It was late last night, and he was initially brought in for questioning. The arrest was made at our homicide branch, 100 block of M Street Southwest. Because of he needed medical attention, I do not know. I think he probably will, but I can't say for sure. That's a good point. This is an extremely safe neighborhood. This is a very unusual incident, and I'm sure none of us wish we were here at this point today. In what way? He didn't cooperate with our investigators, so I can say that. He did not. He was not wearing that shirt. That kind of detail will come out in the court documents. I'm reluctant to say anything that may negatively impact the case.
Did someone see him and identify him before there was even the videotape? Did someone say, that's the guy? Like, when she was attacked, obviously she was not in a position to say anything. Did someone witness it and say, here's what you're looking for, and then you found the video, and there he is? We had, you know, if you think about this particular location on a warm evening, which Tuesday night was, around 8 p.m., well, there was a lot of people out here. People had, the witnesses that we spoke to had varying views and perspectives on what had occurred. So we have to piece that all together. So I wouldn't want to say. What we do know, and those are the things that I talked about already, is that Wendy was jogging westbound on P Street. She got to this intersection, there was a stabbing. The suspect fled on foot south on 11th Street. So that's what essentially, those are the general facts that were very consistent in all of the witness statements.
May I add, Chief?
Yes,
I think it can't be, we can't emphasize enough the importance of having video footage to deter crime and to lead to quick arrest when there is a crime. We know we have video from this intersection. We frequently talk in neighborhoods also about private security cameras that we may tap in case there is an incident. And to the gentleman's point, we do expect safety in our neighborhoods, in any and all neighborhood, whether we're in Logan Circle or Wellington Park. We want people to feel safe going about their normal activities. And a woman jogging on our street is a normal activity. And that's why I'm very grateful to community members. Another very key part of this equation is that people were willing to say what they knew to help in any way. This is an outraged community. It's a woman who should be going to work today. And that cooperation with our detectives and police will help us bring justice for this woman and her friends and family.
Mayor, if there's anyone who...
1 second.
If there's anyone who knew Wendy who might want to address us and give us an insight, I believe there's some people who are familiar with her.
We're going to wrap up our official briefing, and then I'm sure that you can talk to friends and family, of course. Yes. Well, I expect, and I'll have the Chief Gregory Dean from the fire department is also with us, and he can give us the latest on the wrap up of the fire operations, and Kevin or Chief can let you know how we're assisting. This won't be, people will be in shelter and temporary housing. They will not be able to go back to Arthur Camper anytime soon. And so while we're working on the condition of that building and what it's going to take to bring it back, we will have to work very hard to make sure people have other housing accommodations.
Committee, I've certainly had a lot to say about how Dr. Ford is being treated in this process. And she is not being treated fairly. There's absolutely no question about that. And women like Dr. Ford who come forward very bravely to tell her story, which, by the way, is very credible and I believe her, need to be supported. They need not only to be heard, but to be believed. So as all of this is playing out, and it is so obvious that the committee is not treating her fairly. I have heard from some of my friends who I have known, some of them for many, many years, women who shared with me their own really painful stories of, in the case of two of them, they had been raped. And in the case of one of them, she was only 15, and there was an attempted rape on her. And I never knew any of this about these women that I have known for, in cases many years. This is what happens. The trauma of this kind of assault is so tremendous, they never talk about it. But to hear these three friends of mine, as well as others who have contacted my office with their stories, brings tears to my eyes, and it just goes to show how pervasive this is and how we have not created an environment where women like Dr. Ford can come forward and be supported in a respectful way. And that is not what is happening. What is happening with this, with the Judiciary Committee is a really, I would call it a railroad job. And it's totally unfair. The way I portrayed it and describe it is you have the entire force of the presidency and all of the supporters of Judge Kavanaugh in the Senate arrayed on one side, and on the other side you have Dr. Ford, who doesn't even have the benefit of an FBI investigation as we all have called for. You know, how unfair is that? And that's why I'm really grateful that the leaders of her school are coming forward. They organized a letter drive to stand with Dr. Ford, and they're going to have a few words to say in a couple of minutes, but this is not fair. I'm counting on the members of the press to point out that this is a fast track. They are totally intent on getting Judge Kavanaugh onto the Supreme Court, come hell or high water. Come hell or high water. And you have to ask yourself, why? And why isn't Judge Kavanaugh asking for an FBI investigation if he has nothing to hide? You all should continue to press that point. So now I want to
receive the letter and then
close
this out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Would you like to come present the letter? Would you like to read
Introduce
it?
yourselves.
Yeah, sure.
Read the letter and.
No, go ahead. You step forward.
Sure. Hi, my name is Sarah Burgess, and I'm Holton Arms alumni. I'm class of 2005. I'm here today to share a letter which has been signed by over 1,000 Holton alumni in support of Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. We believe Dr. Blasey Ford, and we are so grateful to her for coming forward and sharing her story. As we say in the letter, her experience is consistent with experiences that we have heard and lived, and many of us are survivors ourselves. We are sharing this letter so it can be officially added to the record, so the Senate Judiciary Committee can consider it as they make this very important decision. Dr. Blasey Ford has shown that she is beyond credible. Sexual assault needs to be taken seriously, and there is no way that you can vote on this before we have a thorough and independent investigation. Once again, most of all, we are so grateful to Dr. Blasey Ford, and we hope she knows that we stand with her. And we are so thankful that she is helping us move towards a world where women can be free from sexual assault and violence. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So here's the letter. Yes, this is our letter. My name is Alexis Goldstein. I'm in the class of 1999, and we have had a massive outpouring of support from our community. The women of the Holton Arms School wanted to know how they could sign the letter, how they could help, where they could show up. Everyone wants to stand in solidarity with Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, and we are so proud to be here, but we are mostly proud of her and her courageousness. We invite any Holton Arms alumni who have not yet signed the letter to sign the letter. Christine Lagarde is an alumni of Holton Arms. We invite her to sign the letter. Senator Shelley Moore Capito is a member of the class of 1971 from Holton Arms. We invite Senator Capito to sign this letter. But as Sarah said, and as the senators have said over and over again, this is not, sexual assault is not just something that happens at private school and prep schools. Sexual assault is a problem across America, and women need to be heard and they need to be believed. And we are so in awe of Dr. Blasey Ford's courageousness. The community stands with her. That is why we put this letter together. Our community was very grateful. Holton Arms is not a large school. 1,000 names is a huge number of women from Holton Arms. Our average class size is between 80 and 100, and the farther you go back, the smaller that class is. So this is a huge chunk of our community. But there's one other thing I just want to share with you. So when I was 14 years old, I was on the field hockey team at Holton Arms, and we made a shirt, and I've held on to it for 23 years because it says something on the back that really means something to me. So I was 14 going on 15. I just want to remind everyone that Dr. Christine Blasey Ford was 15 at the time of this assault. That is so young. That is so young. So when I was that young, I was on the field hockey team, and we made this shirt for the team, and it says don't mess. So I'm here today because I want to say don't mess with Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. Don't mess with the alumni of the Holton Arms School. But most importantly, don't mess with survivors. Because this is not 1991, and America has their back. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank these.
Oh, you were speaking too? Sorry.
So I'm Kate Gold. I am class of 2005. And I just want to say that I hope that Dr. Christine Blasey Ford gets the message that we have her back and that we support her in everything that she's going through right now, which is a horrible amount of things that no one should ever have to go through. So I'm glad that you guys are here. And I'm happy for everyone that has signed the letter and everyone that has tried to sign the letter when they're not alumni. And it's been really sweet and wonderful, all of the support that is coming through. So thank you. Thank you.
Kristen. Well, I want to thank these strong, courageous women that are standing with us. I want to thank Senator Hirono for her amazing leadership and her willingness to speak truth to power. So this letter is signed by 1,000 women. There are millions more who want to be heard on this very issue. I believe Dr. Blasey Ford because she's telling the truth, and you know it by her story. You know it by the fact that she told her therapist 5 years ago. It was documented at the time. We have the therapist's notes. She told her husband, this is a trauma she's been dealing with her whole life. She doesn't want to be in a bedroom that doesn't have 2 doors. People knew that about her a long time ago. She told a friend a year ago. She told a reporter before Dr. Kavanaugh was ever named. These are the hallmarks of truth. These are the hallmarks of someone who wants to be believed because she fears that if this person is confirmed, he will do terrible things for American women. She is concerned that he does not have the character, the integrity, the honesty to be a Supreme Court justice. I believe her because she's telling the truth. She is asking the FBI to investigate her claims. She is asking for that kind of review, that investigative work, that oversight, that accountability, because she's telling the truth. Someone who is lying does not ask the FBI to investigate their claims. Who is not asking the FBI to investigate these claims? The White House. Dr. Kavanaugh, Judge Kavanaugh has not asked to have the FBI review these claims. Is that the reaction of an innocent person? It is not. So we have to get to the bottom of this as Americans before we put someone on the Supreme Court for life. I am very concerned that my Senate colleagues on the Republican side of the aisle, those on the Judiciary Committee, are unwilling to get to the bottom of this, don't want the facts. Even the Anita Hill hearings had an investigation, an FBI investigation of her allegations in advance of the hearing. Even in Anita Hill's case, she had 22 witnesses, some of them corroborating witnesses. Those things are not being afforded Dr. Blasey Ford. They're the basics. And this is not something that's debatable or negotiable or we only do it sometimes. No, no, no. A background check is required for all judicial nominees, especially for the Supreme Court. But they cannot complete that background investigation if they don't investigate these claims. So right now we have an incomplete background investigation by the FBI. So she is not asking for extraordinary measures. She's asking for basic fairness. This is about basic fairness. And I do hope the American people, I do hope every woman in America is paying very close attention to what is happening in this body, in the U.S. Senate today. This is not 1991, and how dare them not even afford the basic courtesies that were afforded then. They're giving her an option. The option is show up Monday or don't show up at all. I consider that to be bullying. I consider that to be disregarding. I consider that to be something set up for failure. They would like a he said, she said scenario. Because you know what happens in those scenarios? The men are typically believed because you see those issues through your own lens. Why not have the corroborating witnesses? What are they afraid of? Why not have the therapist come in, her husband come in, her friend come in? Why not have Mark Judge testify under oath to the FBI and then in front of the committee? What are they afraid of? Ask the question, what are they afraid of? What is this White House afraid of? What is this president afraid of? What is the U.S. Senate afraid of? What are the Republican members of the judiciary afraid of? Those are the questions we need to ask today. And thank you for being here. And thank you for standing with Dr. Ford.
Thank you very much. We'll take some questions. We'll take some questions. Any of you have questions?
Yes, come on up, please. Please come up.
You cited Senator Capito being a graduate. She obviously could be a swing vote on this. What would it take for you to make this case to Capito, and what do you specifically expect from a graduate of your school who could make up the difference in the 51-49 Senate on nomination of this election?
I mean, we obviously can't speak for Senator Capito. We have reached out to her office. We've reached out to her staffers. We're going by there later this afternoon to hand deliver a copy of the sign-on letter and invite her to sign just to make sure, absolute sure that she gets it. Holton Arms has an honor code that I think it's safe to say we all take very seriously and believe in each other. So I would hope that the senator would consider signing our letter and consider the fact that this is a member of her extended Holton Arms community, but we cannot speak for the senator.
More than just signing the letter, you need to be able to convert her vote from a potential yes to a no. I mean, that can make the difference right there.
I mean, maybe the senators can speak to that more. We're standing as members of the Holton Arms alumni community in support of our fellow alumni, and we are just asking all members of our alumni community to do that, including Senator Shelley Moore Capito.
Ma'am, maybe if I could follow up with you on Chad's question. Would you endorse a call for Capito to withhold her vote or to vote no?
I think we stand with Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, who has asked for an independent investigation prior to her coming forward to any hearing, and so we would encourage Senator Capito to back her fellow alumni in that request.
I have a question for both the senators, if you don't mind. What do you think the reaction of women across America is going to be if Republicans press forward with a vote on Judge Kavanaugh in the event Dr. Ford doesn't testify? Go ahead.
I hope the women of America, as well as the men, by the way, because why should it just be the women who care about fair treatment, but it's men, it's all of America. I think there's a lot more attention being paid to how this whole thing is being handled. And harken back to 1991 and to listen to Orrin Hatch and Chuck Grassley back then saying, well, an FBI investigation is very appropriate. You would hardly know that they are the two same people who are both saying, we don't need an FBI investigation. You know, if they think that the people of America are not paying attention, and all the women who are running for office more than ever in the entire history of our country, they, I hope, will be badly mistaken come the 2018 elections. There are a lot more people paying attention now.
And, you know, one thing to follow on with what Maisie just said, You know, we have Republican staffers saying that they are unfazed and determined to confirm Judge Kavanaugh. So they're not taking this seriously. When the Republican senators offer their staffs to do the investigation, well, obviously they are not objective. They are not the professional staff that would be necessary in the FBI to do this kind of investigation. Someone who is nonpartisan, someone who has been trained to do this level of investigation. And so having that quote out there, they've already decided they don't want the facts. They don't want this investigation done.
And let me tell you why this is being so fast-tracked. They need to get Judge Kavanaugh on the Supreme Court before the October term begins, because there are a lot of really important cases coming before the court, and the president he thinks that Justice Kavanaugh will protect him from civil and criminal proceedings, because that is what Judge Kavanaugh wrote. And then the Federalist Society and the Heritage Foundation people, they don't want any more 4-4 deadlock Supreme Court decision, as happened in the Fredericks case, which was a case that was going to eviscerate public sector unions. And then along comes Judge Gorsuch on the court, and suddenly there's a 5-4 decision called Janus that did just that. These two organizations want their justices to be, well, they want Justice Kavanaugh up there so that he can be the fifth vote on women's reproductive choice, on environmental protection laws, on continuing attacks on unions and working people. That is why this is being fast-tracked, not to mention there are elections around the corner.
What about the elections? What about the elections?
One at a time, please.
Hold on.
One at a time.
This week, Anita Hill's op-ed this week, she said a process needs to be established for fair treatment of sexual harassment cases that come up. This is not going to be the last one.
No, it won't.
And I wondered if you could share your thoughts on what such a process would look like.
Did you want to?
Well, first of all, there has to be an unbiased, full investigation of the facts that needs to be developed. A hearing should include witnesses that are corroborating witnesses so that you could actually hear from all sides. Those are part of the process that Anita outlined in her op-ed. But I think she's exactly right. And there's precedent for it. It's what we do anyway. And so why not give it a full hearing? In the Anita Hill case, they didn't give it enough time. They rushed it as well. There were witnesses that wanted to testify, denied the ability to testify. They were corroborating witnesses for her story. And so I believe, as she laid out, you need to have an allegation like this fully investigated by a nonpartisan professional source like the FBI.
And anybody who understands the dynamics of this kind of an experience should know that you have to treat the witness with dignity, or the survivor with dignity, and that this whole process is so rushed that it makes our heads spin. Totally unfair, because of these people, the president and the Republican supporters here of Judge Kavanaugh, are totally focused on getting this person onto that Supreme Court.
Senator, if this moves to a floor vote, what are you willing to do to fight for sexual assault survivors? Have you considered sitting on the floor of the Senate like Representative Lewis did for gun victims?
Look, we're going to continue to raise our voices, because this isn't just what we in the Senate can do. It's frankly mobilization all across the country. And as I said, the 2018 elections will be our first time when we can manifest the concerns that are being raised over what's happening with this nomination, and it better manifest itself in the kind of votes that are taken, and the kind of people who get voted in to serve here.
Last question.
Last question. You say he was asked why there would be no outside witnesses in the potential hearing if it happens on Monday, and he said, I want to read to you. He said, we already had a hearing. That's what I call hijacking the regular committee process to accommodate political interest. Can you respond directly to Florence?
Well, first of all, the reason why this is now a public allegation is because it was leaked. She did not want to come forward. She wanted to maintain her confidentiality, but she wanted her senator and congressperson to know that this existed. That is very common behavior for survivors. Once her name was leaked and her identity was leaked, she wanted to be the one to tell her story. That was not within her control. Now that she's telling her story, they have to do the investigation properly, and they have to do the hearings properly. So to rewrite history, to say that they had an opportunity to look into this issue previously is false.
Senator, it seems clear that you are not going to get this FBI investigation that you're looking for. Do you see a way to end this impasse if that condition is not met? What recommendation would you make to the doctor?
It's not clear to me that it can't be done. They should be able to start that investigation right now.
But they don't seem willing to.
If the American people speak out loud enough about how important this is to them, they might change their minds, and they should change their minds. I think we have to keep fighting.
You know, hold on. I raised an issue last night on Rachel Maddow's show. She is being threatened, death threats, etc. This is called, I would say, intimidation of a witness, and I call upon the FBI on their own to investigate this occurrence and all of the threats that she's undergoing.
And if they don't,
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I don't.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Thank you, Senator.
She shouldn't be bullied.
Spellings of your name.
Sarah Burgess,
Well, the White House is still publicly confident that Kavanaugh will, in fact, be confirmed as a Supreme Court justice. But this process is going to get ugly, and the hearing next week may be explosive. Just days ago, Brett Kavanaugh was almost a lock for the Supreme Court. Now, who knows?
Oh, I think he's on track, yeah. I mean, I think he's very much on track.
And President Trump's still confident, but Kavanaugh is now in a position where he's almost required to prove his innocence from allegations that he sexually assaulted a girl when he was in high school, something he denies.
I believe her. Many, many, many Americans believe her.
A number of Democrats say they have already made up their minds that the allegation is true. Many want a full FBI investigation, which could take weeks, pushing this back beyond the midterm elections. And some Republicans see evidence of political choreography.
If Ms. Ford really did not want to come forward, never intended to come forward, never planned to come forward, why did she pay for a polygraph in August, and why did she hire a lawyer in August if she never intended to do what she's doing? I think it's part of a pattern. They can't beat him on the law, so they're trying to destroy his life.
But much will depend on moderate Republicans like Maine's Susan Collins.
Obviously, if Judge Kavanaugh has lied about what happened, that would be disqualifying.
And one thing is absolutely true here on Capitol Hill.
It's a potential opening up of a can of vipers, not worms, vipers, on Monday with an unpredictable ending.
And as far as a potential FBI investigation is concerned, it's not clear at this point how that would really play out. They say there's no evidence right now of a federal crime. In Washington, Doug Luzader, Fox News.
Rescue efforts throughout much of waterlogged North Carolina, crews braving the dangerous, rushing water, risking their own lives to save others. Airdropping into a fast-moving river may be just another day at work for the Coast Guard. However, ordinary, untrained civilians are also lending a hand.
It's a time for us to kind of come together, work together to kind of make sure we all survive.
Many people in North Carolina have been rescued by neighbors and other locals, men and women who own a boat and simply want to help.
It makes me feel real good. If I can help out, I'd love to help any way I can.
Plenty of those volunteers are going through their own flooding disasters.
I lost my truck and we got 5 foot in the house and there's no telling what else is gone.
And it's not always a case of simply pulling up in a boat alongside a waiting homeowner.
We're going to go inland waiting, because the boat can't make it, and try to convince some folks to leave.
These concerned volunteers went into their neighbor's house and physically carried an elderly woman downstairs to safety. People often get shows of gratitude from those they rescue.
I'm very grateful, and I thank every one of them for their service, and I hope they stay safe.
But not everyone is able to say thank you. Animals need rescuing as well, and plenty of them refuse to go willingly. One team this weekend rescued 6 dogs in a locked cage that was quickly filling with water. In Fayetteville, North Carolina, Steve Harrigan, Fox News.
Two Republican senators now say they would like to wait until they hear from a woman accusing Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct decades ago before moving forward with the nomination process. They are Senators Jeff Flake and Bob Corker. Flake is on the Judiciary Committee. He tells Fox, "I'm uncomfortable moving forward with a yes vote until we hear from Ford, the accuser." Two question marks now become the undecided Republicans, Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins. They would come into play if the Judiciary Committee decides to go ahead with the vote scheduled for Thursday to recommend Kavanaugh to the full Senate, because the full Senate can go ahead and give him a thumbs up or try to, even if the Judiciary gives him a thumbs down. The Republicans on the Judiciary Committee released a statement that says, in part, it's disturbing that these uncorroborated allegations from more than 35 years ago during high school would surface on the eve of a committee vote after Democrats sat on them since July. The Judiciary Committee's top Democrat, Senator Dianne Feinstein, says, from the outset, I believed these allegations were extremely serious and bear heavily on Judge Kavanaugh's character. However, as we have seen over the past few days, they also come at a price for the victim. I hope the attacks and shaming of her will stop, and this will be treated with the seriousness it deserves. And this doesn't just involve a potential Supreme Court job for Kavanaugh. It also might put in peril his current job on the D.C. court, because another Democratic Senator, Sheldon Whitehouse, says if it turns out that Kavanaugh lied to the FBI, he could be impeached. On Capitol Hill, Peter Ducey, Fox News.
And sexually assaulted me. And I wanted to do the right thing, and I wanted to prevent this individual from attacking other people in the future. So I made the difficult and emotionally painful decision to report this event to the university police, and I reported within an hour of the attack. I was not believed. There was a camera over the door to the dorm, which should have shown me going inside and my attacker going inside a few minutes later. They didn't take the footage. They said the camera was broken. I had scratched the skin off of his face, and I had his skin cells under my fingernails. And no one would clip my nails at the police station, and no one took me to a local hospital to do a rape kit so that this biological evidence could be preserved. And I say all this because I think there are some people out there who believe that if Christine Blasey Ford had acted differently in the wake of her attempted rape, that maybe this whole situation would have been resolved much sooner. And I just want to say that my attack happened in the year 2000, and survivors are still not believed, even when they do the right thing. And so I don't think the process works as cleanly or as clearly as any of us would like. And I'm interested in doing more advocacy work on the Hill so that women and other people who are sexually assaulted can have a fair process. And so people who violently attack other individuals can be put in prison. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. We have Gabrielle, a Navy veteran.
All ran in and started helping. Yeah, that's great to hear.
From survivors. All over the country.
I'll see you later.
Yeah. Move to the right or left. No, I don't know. There's a lady that's the purchase. I gotta tell you, she never really formally answered it.
That we should have this hearing without having a full, fair investigation.
Senate Democrats want an FBI probe, and now the accuser does too.
No investigation is, any legitimate investigation is going to happen between now and Monday.
But the president suggests it won't happen.
They've investigated about 6 times before, and it seems that they don't do that.
The FBI does background checks and criminal investigations. While there are allegations of sexual assault more than 3 decades ago, former agents tell Fox News there are no allegations of a federal crime, so the FBI would not open a criminal probe. The Bureau does background checks for nominees and could do follow-up for the requesting agency, in this case, the White House. Greg Nunziata handled nominations for the Senate Judiciary Committee.
The FBI's role in this process is to essentially surface allegations like this for the Senate. They simply serve things up for the Senate's investigators to consider and for the Senate to weigh along with all the other evidence.
Christine Blasey Ford alleges that she was sexually assaulted at a Maryland party in the early 80s by Brett Kavanaugh when both were teenagers. With no new evidence, legal experts said a state prosecution won't go forward.
They would go out and try to find witnesses who could corroborate
either her story or his story. And after 30 years, it's almost impossible to do that.
11th hour allegations were also leveled nearly 30 years ago at another Supreme Court nominee, Clarence Thomas, this time by a former colleague who is again speaking out.
Absolutely, it's the right move. The hearing questions need to have a frame, and the investigation is the best frame for that, a neutral investigation that can pull together the facts.
But a former Senate Judiciary Committee staffer said the facts in the Anita Hill case were very different, adding the FBI conducted a handful of interviews and not a full-blown investigation. In Washington, Catherine Herridge, Fox News.
President Trump traveling to the Carolinas to assess the damage from Hurricane Florence. The president comforting storm victims and promising help is on the way.
Washington is with you. Trump is with you. We are all with you 100%, and we'll get through it.
At least 36 deaths have been reported in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. Scores have lost their homes. Officials warn the flooding isn't over yet.
So the rain, the water that you see out there now is just the beginning. The worst is yet to come. We're going to have water outside this building maybe 4 feet deep, maybe 5 feet deep.
In North Carolina, many roads made impassable by the storm are still closed. Evacuees are being told it's not safe to come back yet. Some don't know if they have a home to return to at all.
I'm just eager to get back and just make sure that everything's good and begin the process of, getting our lives back in order.
National Guard troops have been performing rescues and helping with relief efforts.
And I tell them all everywhere you go, I said, you just don't understand the calm that adding somebody in uniform, putting them on the streets, driving those trucks, delivering supplies, they add some calm to the chaos, if you will.
Here in North Carolina, there are still tens of thousands without power, and people are lining up for hours to get food, water, and basic supplies. In Raleigh, North Carolina, Ray Bogan, Fox News.
Order for Kevin? All right, go ahead and grab that.
Senor Sisig is a popular food truck serving up what loyal followers describe as unique Filipino fusion. It is among the vendors at the Off the Grid food truck event at the Ceremony Center in Daly City.
It's just different. It's different food that you can't get at a restaurant. I mean, I've never seen an Asian burrito at a restaurant before.
Senor Sisig is also doing something else different by going cashless. Starting the first of this year, it stopped accepting cash. Co-owner Evan Cadera says safety and efficiency are factors.
I grew up in the restaurant industry. My dad was robbed as a kid, and it just got to the point to where it was like we were accepting so little cash compared to credit transactions that it didn't really make sense to carry cash anymore.
Cadera sees fewer and fewer customers using cash.
When we started out in 2010, it was about 70% cash, 30% credit, and over the years, every year, it's about 10% decline.
At The Pokeman, owner Ray Serrano says he plans to continue to accept cash.
Not everybody uses credit cards, and a lot of people, especially the older generation, they don't know how to use apps, using Square and Venmo and PayPal and all that stuff. And most people I know still believe in the old school cash.
Still, Serrano and the owner of Spark Social SF in Mission Bay say it makes good business sense for vendors such as Senor Sisig that run several trucks to go cashless.
This whole coordination with a lot of employees, you're in a lot of different locations, money in cash gets lost really easily.
Customers say they want to be able to pay in cash.
I hardly see people paying cash, but it's a good option to have always.
As for Senor Sisig, the co-owner says going cashless has worked well so far.
We feel a lot safer, and it's a lot easier to run business.
Haven't seen a downside then?
No, I mean, we want to focus on food. We don't want to be a bank.
Wait. It's always harder to say goodbye than it is to say hello.
As of right now, this is the only thing he knows.
Meet Hendricks County Deputy Sean Caffey give a welcome to Tempest.
All right, brother, let's go. Let's go.
His latest partner with some big paws to fill.
All right, find out.
Right now, we are currently doing narcotics training certification.
Kyle Schaefer supervises the county canine program.
Laney.
Bach here is a veteran and proud father. His son Kane was born to track. his mother with the Indiana Homeland Security.
They just think it's neat to see a father-son combo work in the streets.
Cade marching side by side with Kathy.
I was learning what to do, not Cade.
That is until early July, the pair tracking a suspect in Brownsburg.
He started showing symptoms.
Basically, his stomach or intestines get twisted inside, and that causes a lot of internal damages.
Kathy rushing Cade to the vet, but by morning, he was gone. Devastation soon setting in.
I think we all were, yeah. I mean, it's family.
It's hard to watch a brother officer suffer like that.
Tempest is now learning the ropes, quite literally. His training tethered to a ball and string.
We use the tennis ball as somewhat of a reward.
They hide cocaine, meth, heroin.
This is marijuana.
If he finds it, he gets what they call the game, a tug of war.
He looks back at Dad and says, hey, all right, come. It's over here, Dad. Come pay me. Let's play. Let's play.
Yeah, super. Good boy.
After narcotics, he goes to tracking suspects, then by late fall, patrol training.
He's a young, energetic dog, so it's nice to have life breathed back into this situation.
Good boy.
In Danville, I'm Mike Sullivan.
Super.
Fox 59 News.
Yeah.
We began selling the files for 3D printed guns and blueprints to the public. I'm happy now at this point to become the iTunes of downloadable guns.
Cody Wilson, the man who gained national attention for creating and posting blueprints for making untraceable 3D printed guns, charged with sexually assaulting a girl under 17. According to the arrest affidavit, Wilson paid her $500 in exchange for sex on August 15th. The report goes on to detail how the 30-year-old Texas man and teen met, saying Wilson met her on the website sugardaddymeet.com, the victim telling police she exchanged messages with the person using the screen name Sanjuro, who later identified himself as Wilson.
We have no reason to believe at this point that anyone other than the victim signed herself up for this account.
Police were tipped off to the illicit encounter by the victim's counselor, and surveillance videos and receipts back up the girls' accounts of the pair's meeting. Wilson left the U.S. and was last known to be in Taiwan, but he missed his flight home. Police believe he may have been tipped off.
We know Mr. Wilson frequently travels for business. We don't know why he went to Taiwan, but we do know before he left, he was informed by a friend of the victim that she had spoken to police, and police were investigating him for having sex with a minor.
The crime carries a sentence of up to 20 years if Wilson is convicted. In New York, Jack Callahan, Fox News.
The 158 smart hydrants are monitoring a vast area between 100 and 200 square blocks of Diamond Heights and Glen Park.
These are listening for leaks in the water pipes that are so small that we cannot detect them from above the ground. Even a very small leak can be leaking hundreds of gallons per minute.
They can find leaks long before they become underground gushers that undermine the ground and cause pipes or joints to fail.
We can actually go and proactively dig up the pipes, repair them before these leaks surface and cause a lot of property damage and disruption of our water service.
The system can track more than leaky pipes. In fact, if you even have a leak in your house, they can track that leak all the way to your water meter and then send you a notice that you have a water leak inside your own property, which it's your responsibility to fix. The listening devices called loggers do their job in the wee hours of the morning.
So these loggers are listening between 2 and 4 because it's the time when everyone's asleep in bed, so it's the period of least demand. So any demand that happens during those hours is most likely a leak.
Because the sensors listen to the pipes several times during those hours and automatically call in the results every night, the occasional toilet flush will not fool it.
Yeah, there's a team of engineers that look at it, and then they try to pinpoint the leak within 5 to 6 feet of where we think the actual leak is before our leak detection crew goes out and investigates.
The leak crew then uses a high-tech listening device to precisely pinpoint the leak, which speeds up repairs because not as big of an excavation hole is required, and the leak is still more manageable. The post-repair road patch is also often a tiny fraction of what it would have been before this system.
So we've already found 4 pretty good-sized leaks that we have repaired.
Signing up for peace in Pyongyang. That's at least how North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in put it.
We have promised to make the Korean Peninsula the land of peace without nuclear weapons and nuclear threats.
For the first time, South and North Korea agreed on a specific step towards denuclearization. It is a very meaningful achievement.
Kim pledged to allow foreign experts to observe the permanent dismantlement of a main missile launch and test site, and said he'd get rid of a key nuclear production facility if the U.S. took, quote, corresponding measures.
Prior to becoming president, it looked like we were going to war with North Korea, and now we have a lot of progress.
Still, Kim already promised President Trump he'd ditch the missile site when they met in June. And there are other missile sites, launch facilities, and nuclear production plants in the north.
The North Koreans continue to produce fissile material, and they're refurbishing various sites. So I think we have to be very careful about the big hoopla surrounding the latest statements from North Korea.
Experts say Kim wants the U.S. to agree to a declaration of the end of the Korean War. And he made no mention of what the U.S. wants, an accounting of the North's nuclear and missile arsenal. Still, there's some progress.
What's important for us is to continue to say, okay, that's a good step. That's not the end state.
Probably more impressive, measures to improve inter-Korean ties, including making the demilitarized zone between the two countries less demilitarized, a visit by Kim to Seoul, and a joint bid for the 2032 Summer Olympics. Late today, Secretary of State Pompeo said in a statement he welcomes the successful outcome of the summit and looks forward to wrapping up denuclearization, as suggested earlier by Chairman Kim, by January 2021. Wishful diplomacy? In London, Greg Palcott, Fox News.
I mean, I lived in the homeless shelter, and I was like, man, you know, where am I going to shave?
Anthony Torres still has that ID card issued by the shelter in New York. But after his brother sent him money for a train ride home,
I wanted to look like not presentable. You know what I'm trying? I hate going around, you know, looking like a bum.
And so last week, while he was on New Jersey Transit headed to his brother Thomas's home in Atco, New Jersey, Anthony pulled out his razor and shaving cream. That's when somebody snapped a picture of him shaving, posted now to a GoFundMe site hoping to help him. But before there was sympathy for Anthony's plight, there was disgust.
He's a slob, he's a pig, why is he shaving?
The comments hurt, video and images going viral. Brother Thomas says Anthony has struggled with homelessness for years and can miss normal social cues.
You really shouldn't judge people for their character because you don't know their character. You don't know their life.
Luckily for all of us, in the age of the internet, kindness can spread as quickly as cruelty. After the circumstances behind Anthony's image became clear, people came forward wanting to help. Anthony's story now serving as a reminder to all. Before you judge a man, walk a mile in his shoes.
I know that's wrong, what I did. I feel better now that people know the real me.
The 158 smart hydrants are monitoring a vast area.
Elizabeth Smart opening up about the release of one of her kidnappers, Wanda Barzee, hours after she was freed from jail.
It certainly has been a roller coaster of emotion, and at the same time I've received an outpouring of love, of support, of prayers, and I so appreciate it.
Barzee was convicted of aiding in the 2002 kidnapping of Smart. Wanda and then husband Brian David Mitchell kidnapped Smart at knife point from her Salt Lake City bedroom and held her captive for 9 months. The 72-year-old was released from prison Wednesday, freed 5 years earlier than expected. Barzee's attorney says she has served her time and is fit to return into the community.
There is no reliable evidence to support speculation that Ms. Barzee presently poses a threat of any kind to the community in which she resides or any particular person.
But Elizabeth's dad disagrees.
All indications are she's still the same mindset she was when she pushed Brian to come down to the house and abduct Elizabeth.
And that belief is shared by a member of Barzee's own family.
Can you really help somebody that's done something like that?
Barzee will remain under federal supervision for 5 years and must follow several conditions set with her release, including a 9 p.m. curfew and mental health treatment. She must register as a sex offender, and she's prohibited from having any contact with Elizabeth Smart or her family. In New York, Jackie Ibanez, Fox News.
Order for Kevin? All right, go ahead and grab that.
Senor Sisig is a popular food truck serving up what loyal followers describe as unique Filipino fusion. It is among the vendors at the off-the-grid food truck event at the Ceremony Center in Daly City.
It's just different. It's different food that you can't get at a restaurant. I mean, I've never seen an Asian burrito at a restaurant before.
Senor Sisig is also doing something else different by going cashless. Starting the first of this year, it stopped accepting cash. Co-owner Evan Cadera says safety and efficiency are factors.
I grew up in the restaurant industry. My dad was robbed as a kid, and it just got to the point to where it was like we were accepting so little cash compared to credit transactions that it didn't really make sense to carry cash anymore.
Cadera sees fewer and fewer customers using cash.
When we started out in 2010, it was about 70% cash, 30% credit. And over the years, every year, it's about 10% decline.
At the Pokeman, owner Ray Serrano says he plans to continue to accept cash.
Not everybody uses credit cards, and a lot of people, especially the older generation, they don't know how to use apps, using Square and Venmo and PayPal and all that stuff. And most people I know still believe in the old school cash.
Still, Serrano and the owner of Spark Social SF in Mission Bay say it makes good business sense for vendors such as Senor Sisig that run several trucks to go cashless.
This whole coordination with a lot of employees, you're in a lot of different locations, money in cash gets lost really easily.
Customers say they want to be able to pay in cash.
I hardly see people paying cash, but it's a good option to have always.
As for Senor Sisig, the co-owner says going cashless has worked well so far.
We feel a lot safer, and it's a lot easier to run business.
Haven't seen a downside then?
No, I mean, we want to focus on food. We don't want to be a bank.
Told you were a liar, a troublemaker, and so on and so forth. It hurts a lot. And so I just want to say, let's start believing our children, let's start believing the victims. And enough is enough. It happened to me too. It happens to so many other people. One other quick note is Affordable Care Act. Without the Affordable Care Act, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This woman right here stands before you, 52 years old, will be buried by her child if they take my health care. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. I I can't afford $5,000 a month for my meds. Without those meds, I will die. I will not be healthy anymore. I will not be able to survive. So I stand here and I beg Senator Grassley to please vote no. Stop this sham of a nominee. Get rid of it. Let's find someone that's going to actually support women in the Supreme Court. So I'm begging you, please vote no. Thank you.
People have been doing so much early this morning. I caught my header.
What you have.
Taken away through the emails that you've sent and on the media, that I would have something to say. You know, if I had heard that people flew and drove from Wisconsin and Ohio and Colorado and Arizona and South Dakota and Alaska,
Vermont, Missouri,
New York, Pennsylvania, Chicago, Wisconsin, that I would realize that I would have to give them some kind of response. Anything, nothing, no word from Senator Grassley.
What about from you? How have you felt hearing our stories today?
I think if we don't have an answer from Senator Grassley, then we're going to have to shut down this office. So let's go outside and make sure that no one else can get into this office.
Do that.
Okay, so we're gonna
I am curious, have you had any personal reaction to like all the stories that you've heard today? At all? Like what kind of response do you have hearing this?
Hours. No, I don't. Not yet.
This is the only kind of bread we ever get.
So you know these people.
We believe. We believe Christine Ford. We believe Christine Ford. We believe Anita Hill. 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 We believe Christine Ford. We believe believe Christine Ford. We believe Anita Hill. We 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 believe Christine Ford.
We should have this hearing without having a full, fair investigation.
Senate Democrats want an FBI probe, and now the accuser does too.
No investigation is, any legitimate investigation is going to happen between now and Monday.
But the president suggests it won't happen.
They've investigated about 6 times before, and it seems that they don't do that.
The FBI does background checks and criminal investigations. While there are allegations of sexual assault more than 3 decades ago, former agents tell Fox News there are no allegations of a federal crime, so the FBI would not open a criminal probe. The Bureau does background checks for nominees and could do follow-up for the requesting agency, in this case, the White House. Greg Nunziata handled nominations for the Senate Judiciary Committee.
The FBI's role in this process is to essentially surface allegations like this for the Senate. They simply serve things up for the Senate's investigators to consider and for the Senate to weigh along with all the other evidence.
Christine Blasey Ford alleges that she was sexually assaulted at a Maryland party in the early 80s by Brett Kavanaugh when both were teenagers. With no new evidence, legal experts said a state prosecution won't go forward.
They would go out and try to find witnesses who could corroborate either her story or his story. And after 30 years, it's almost impossible to do that.
11th hour allegations were also leveled nearly 30 years ago at another Supreme Court nominee, Clarence Thomas, this time by a former colleague who is again speaking out.
Absolutely, it's the right move. The hearing questions need to have a frame, and the investigation is the best frame for that, a neutral investigation that can pull together the facts.
But a former Senate Judiciary Committee staffer said the facts in the Anita Hill case were very different, adding the FBI conducted a handful of interviews and not a full-blown investigation. In Washington, Catherine Herridge, Fox News.
Come back. You guys have to step back. Sir, step back. Come on. Keep going back.
How far are you saying us back?
if I can take you to the next one. People fighting for democracy.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm Ray Fang again. I'm the Trauma Medical Director here at Johns Hopkins Bayview Medical Center. Just as an update from this morning's earlier briefing, we did receive 4 patients this morning from the incident up in Aberdeen. All 4 of them came to our trauma center with gunshot wounds. I can tell you now that 2 are stable and doing well, and 2 were very seriously injured. And we're still awaiting confirmation that all their families have been notified of their presence here and their injuries. So are there any other questions?
Were any of the gunshot wounds self-inflicted?
I wasn't there, so I couldn't tell you.
And do you have any updated information regarding whether one of the individual patients is the person accused of committing this crime?
Again, I wasn't there, so I can't tell you. They're all patients to us, so we take care of them and the injuries they have.
Of the 2 that are stable, have they been able to tell you anything or say anything about what happened this morning?
I believe that they spoke to authorities about what happened to them, but I didn't ask them specifically about the events. They were injured pretty much torso. There were some significant injuries.
Are there any more surgeries coming up for any of these patients?
I think that's up to them to disclose whether or not what their care will entail. I want to be respectful of the patients and their privacy and their family's privacy.
The 2 that were seriously injured, are they in the ICU unit we talked about earlier?
So they're undergoing care.
Are any of the patients still in surgery, or is everyone out?
Everybody's out of surgery.
Can you tell us if they're men, women?
Again, until we know all the families have been notified, I don't want to give additional details like that.
Has anyone shot multiple times?
As best as I recall, each had a single gunshot wound. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. So, I mean, I think until we know the events and the motivations, it's always good to be cautious and have security for their safety and also for our hospital personnel safety. It is possible. So again, since the events were not, or details of the event were not known, for again the patient safety and hospital safety, we had additional security that was present beyond what is normally here. All right, so I don't know that we're going to have many more updates, but if there's additional questions, you can refer to hospital media relations. All right, thank you.